Good evening, my fellow Americans. This is your President Samuel Ronan speaking, and it is a new week. We are somehow slogging along in this dystopian nightmare, and we are somehow struggling to survive and making it through the day after day. Some of us are able to, just work and pretend things aren't happening. Others are just crashing out day in and day out. There we go. So, we have a lot to cover because the weekend was, quite filled with activity, as I'm sure you all know. And then there's also some good stuff like the Super Bowl and Bad Bunny making a historic performance. He is now the most widely watched Super Bowl performance in history. And on top of that, with a Spanish-speaking language as the primary language in a performance as well. So, multiple barriers broken in one single night, and his performance also highlighted a lot of Latin American history, especially how it was affected by us, America. So, we're definitely going to be covering that, although maybe not right away. We have a lot of different topics to cover today. So, just a few things to look forward to, and we will jump right into it. Hello, Anna. How's it going? And, starting off with, I guess these are a mix of kind of questions like how to, right? Because we're going to go Epstein, Olympics, Epstein, tariffs. So, let's just start off strong, shall we?
We have some news this evening. It appears as though the Department of Justice deleted a critical Epstein file today. And you need to know about it. So this Epstein file was caught by the Miami Herald, Julie K. Brown. Essentially is an 86-page memo that prosecutors drafted explaining why Jeffrey Epstein and 3 co-conspirators of his should be indicted for various sex trafficking-related charges. This accompanied a 60-count indictment that had been drafted in the mid-2000s in the Southern District of Florida before Epstein got his sweetheart deal pleading to the prostitution-related charges. Well, there was a memo explaining why and what evidence, essentially, prosecutors had that they believed would be able to secure a conviction, a guilty verdict against Epstein and these co-conspirators. That memo has been conspicuously taken down from the DOJ's website per the Herald. Ask yourselves why. I have the full memo still on my computer. So I know what's in there.
Well, first of all, if you have the full video on your computer or the full memo on your computer, you should create a website and add it. And if they try and take you down, then you sue them for libel or whatever else and force them to, prove you wrong, that this is not real and this was not whatever it was supposed to be, right? So, again, this video is good in the sense that it's informative about, yes, there's a cover-up going on. We know there's a cover-up going on. There's been a cover-up going on. And that they are being very overt about the cover-up. We are well aware of that as well. But you know how we fight the cover-up? By exposing it, talking about it, and demanding action. Right now, nobody's talking about it, and nobody's demanding action. At least, yes, there is chatter on the internet, but, where's the protests? Where's the calls and the emails and the inundation against the administration, right? Where are the calls for resignation and prosecution? Right, that's the kind of energy we need to start pushing forward. So, you organized it. Okay, because now that's number 23 on here. Okay. So, never mind. We will skip this when we get back to it in the Epstein. But I guess we were supposed to start off with good news, which is the Winter Olympics. Mea culpa.
Well, while American athletes got an enthusiastic welcome at the opening ceremony, there were jeers and boos when Vice President J.D. Vance and his wife appeared on.
Now, that's worth noting. The American athletes were met with cheers and applause, but J.D. Vance and Usha and everybody, the government, they were the ones that got booed. So that's actually a very good sign that although, yes, America, the government, is losing credibility on the world stage, left, right, and center, America, the people, we have sympathy. For now. Again, the longer we allow this to continue, the less likely that sympathy remains, but it is worth noting, it is worth mentioning that the American athletes, the people proper, we are still good to go in the world stage. It's the leadership. For now. I emphasize, for now.
Camera. Support for the U.S. has been eroding due to the Trump administration's aggressive foreign policy. Today, freestyle skier Hunter Hess, who's from Bend, spoke about his feelings representing Team USA.
It brings up mixed emotions to represent the U.S. right now, I think. It's a little hard. There's obviously a lot going on that I'm not the biggest fan of, and I think a lot of people aren't. I think for me, it's more I'm representing my friends and family back home, the people that represent it before me, all the things that I believe are good about the U.S. I just think if it aligns with my moral values, I feel like I'm representing it. Just because I'm wearing the flag doesn't mean I represent everything that's going on in the U.S. So yeah, I just kind of want to do it for my friends and my family and the people that support me getting here.
Which is fair. And is exactly the same tactic that the U.S. government used to avoid anti-war movements by making it about supporting the troops. Now, I am not shaming Hunter Hess for saying what he said, because he's an athlete. He is a regular person and not a political junkie. I don't expect him to understand the minutia or the context of what he just did or how he just did it, right? But for the rest of us, the political junkies, the ones who are in the trenches, that is exactly how the U.S. propaganda system framed the global war on terror to be about supporting troops rather than supporting the war, because people don't support wars or conflicts. But we do support our troops, our sons and daughters, risking their lives overseas serving their country. So I'm representing America in the U.S. Olympics, but I don't necessarily agree with all the bad shit that is happening. I'm there for my people, my community, my friends and family. So it's for now a thing that we can say and do. For now, that is the push that we can make. Right? I'm running for Congress. I am running for the U.S. House of Representatives. And I am diametrically opposed to everything that is happening in our government right now. And so many people think that the vote or running as a Republican or the bi-party the two-party system itself is a problem. But at the end of the day, you have to play the hand that you're dealt, and then you can start changing the rules, right? So I'm primarying the incumbent. There is a whole lot of anti-Trump sentiment, anti-establishment sentiment. That's going to do me a lot of favors. The problem is, people who tend to vote in primaries tend to be the most conservative of the groups, right? So I have my work cut out for me. But that's the point, right? We have our work cut out for ourselves, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't do the work. And that doesn't mean we shouldn't reach out olive branches wherever we can. And in this case, this athlete is saying, I am reaching out to people who think and feel like me, that are upset with what's happening in our country, but still are proud of what the good of our country has to offer. And to be fair, there is a lot of good that the United States of America has to offer when it's not being ran like a fascist dictatorship. I mean, we don't have universal health care, education, guaranteed wages. There's a lot of things we don't have, right? But we do have a lot of good things. A lot of our technology is still the best in the world, although that might be rapidly declining. We do have a strong and diverse economy that's also rapidly declining. So the thing is, we have a lot of good things that are in decline right now, and it's up to us to save them. It's literally ours to lose, right? The things that have been broken, like law enforcement, like the judicial system, like the for-profit education and healthcare systems that we have, right? Our crumbling infrastructure. We can fix these things, and we can do the things that make us great, which is embracing our diversity, embracing our various cultures and differences, right? Working together with all of these different backgrounds and ideologies to come up with a greater whole, right? That is our strength. That has been our greatest strength. It is why we have always been proud of being called the melting pot nation. It's why our nation's motto was E pluribus unum, out of many one. That is the ideals that makes this country great. That is worth celebrating. That is worth fighting for. So just because a lot of our institutions are being gutted and a lot of our influence is being revoked and we are spending all of our resources on a secret police doesn't change the fact that we can and will build something that represents us. And once we finally get to that point, we will be able to proudly, represent ourselves in these countries, in these different events and whatever have yous, right? So, it might be a little hard to say I'm proud to be an American because of the administration, but there is a lot to be proud of. So, Amber Glenn?
A Team USA figure skater says she received threats after making political comments at the Olympics. Amber Glenn, the three-time reigning US figure skating champion and a strong medal contender at the Olympics, says she's now taking a break from social media for her mental health. Glenn, who is the first openly queer woman representing Team USA in Olympic figure skating, spoke during an Olympic press conference earlier this week about using her platform as an athlete.
It's been a hard time for the community overall under this administration. It isn't the first time that we've had to come together as a community and try and fight for our human rights.
A few days later, Glenn shared on Instagram that she began receiving what she describes as a scary amount of hate and threats following those comments. She said she expected some backlash but was still disappointed by the response, adding that while she's limiting her time online for now, she won't stop using her voice. Glenn is competing at her first Winter Olympics with events coming up in the women's team and women's singles.
The Commerce Department.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, right? We always talk about, we wish celebrities would use their platforms for good. And then all of the celebrities who do use their platforms end up being shitbags. So then when we finally get celebrities using their platforms for good, then they get threatened and then forced off because, well, they're not political junkies. They're celebrities, in this case, an athlete, right? And a figure skating athlete, not even like an NBA superstar that everybody knows of, right? She is a figure skating world champion, yes, but most people probably would not have known that unless they're very interested in figure skating. So we have all of these voices stepping up, using a world stage to speak out, and then our own countrymen are threatening her and getting her to back off because there is not enough support backing her up, backing up those voices, right? We demand that there are more voices for the voiceless. We demand that people use their platforms. And then when they get shouted down or threatened, we don't stand up on their behalf and ridicule and revile those who attack them in the first place, right? That's the problem. We are a very selfish country. We are a very selfish people. We demand everything from others, but then don't hold ourselves to the same standard, right? Use your platform for good. Great. They do that. And then they get attacked. And what do? Nothing. We don't support them. We don't try and, report the bad actors for their death threats. None of that. And even if we do, the police don't prosecute. The police say, that's just the internet. It is what it is. We don't demand better behavior. And then we don't ostracize those people from society, the ones that did the death threats and all that, just because they didn't, their feelings got hurt. So we have a lot of work to do, right? It involves a thing that we have lost in society, which is community. And yes, there are various communities that exist amongst the various demographics, right? The LGBT community is a very strong community. But even within that, there are factions and islands within, right? Just because you're gay doesn't mean you support lesbians. And just because you're a lesbian doesn't mean you support transgender people, right? And just because you're transgender doesn't mean you support bisexuals, right? And so on and so on and so on. So we aren't even necessarily a fully unified community within a community itself, right? Black folks are not a unified front either, right? Skin folk ain't kinfolk is one of the most prominent sayings because a lot of, unfortunately, black people within the black community betray the black community to try and gain white sympathy, and it falls apart, right? And then you have Black Panthers versus the Black Tigers now. Is that what the other one's called? All right, the Black Panthers who literally established Meals on Wheels and I think it was preschool or something akin to that. And now you have the Black Tigers who are like, hey, no, we're going to go militant on these asses and we're going to march down the streets armed and angry, right? So, you know what I'm saying? even when we come together as a community, we still end up fragmenting into different pockets, because those who want change believe strongly that their vision, right, their ideas and their values are the ones that are going to carry the day. That's the problem with left-leaning ideology. It doesn't have cohesion. It can't. Because each individual person's sense of duty, sense of honor, sense of justice, sense of right and wrong is going to be different. And you're going to find yourself enmeshed with whoever you feel is most closely aligned with yours. Whereas right-wing ideology cares mostly about control. They don't care that the pro-lifers may not be pro-2A. They just care that pro-life and pro-2A are working together to have the same thing, which is what they want. Interestingly enough, even if pro-lifers happen to be against the 2A, they'll still work with the 2A because the 2A will work with them. And that homogeny is only found in right-wing belief systems. Conservative, if you will. And so we truly need to get past right-wing, left-wing, and conservative versus liberal. We need to get past these ideologies and how they constantly divide us, for one, right? For two, the right-leaning ideologies that are more about control rather than, freedom of expression and so on and so forth, those need to be pushed away, because that's always going to end up to regression, fascism, dictatorship, what have you. On the same token, though, left-leaning ideologies need to figure out how to work together. Just because you are queer and they're about clean energy doesn't mean you can't work together to accomplish the same goals. If the clean energy folks win, chances are the queer people win as well. And then you have the liberation of black and brown and Asian and Hispanic and all this other stuff, right? All of these different ideologies and groups have the same end goal, which is equality, true equity, right? And often described as liberation. So the people's liberation, the emancipation from corporate control, for one, but from any control, right? The drive for a populist movement that supports the many. So we need to start getting on board with that, which means we need to support Amber Glenn, we need to support Hunter Hess, we need to start supporting all of these different groups and all these different organizations, these activists, these candidates, these celebrities, and we need to give them all the equal voice, the equal share, even if they're doing something that we don't necessarily agree with as the method, right? You know how many people disagree with me running for Republican or running for Congress as a Republican? Quite a bit, as it turns out. But I'm running against the incumbent. If I beat the incumbent, it doesn't matter who gets the election at that point, because the incumbent is gone. We have won one victory out of 435. That is a definitive victory, that we got a conservative MAGA cultist out of office. That is a definitive victory. And after that, if you still don't want to support a Republican, vote Democrat and pick from whichever one is most left-leaning, right? There are more than one ways to skin the cat. And what we need to do is what the conservatives do in that sense, which is support each other bar none. You all have your individual goals and your ideals, bet. They happen to somewhat align with ours, so let's go with it. That's what we need to do. And seeing these clips about the athletes being targeted by the media or getting death threats is a failure on our part to protect them when they are actually doing what we ask them to do. So, moving along, I guess I went on a bit of a tangent there.
Department says shoppers pulled back on spending in the month of December. U.S. retail sales came in flat over the holiday shopping season amid concerns over a slowing job market and new uncertainty around global trade. Stock market reacting to the numbers, with the S&P and NASDAQ finishing the day lower. The Dow did close, though, at a new all-time high. And another...
Okay, so speaking of the economy, if the economy is slowing down, if people are spending less money, and if jobs are more uncertain, but the Dow reaches a new all-time high, we really need to start asking some questions. The stock market is hitting new records. The rest of the economy is struggling. One of these things is not like the other. Why is the stock market going up if the economy is plummeting? And then why do we keep insisting that the stock market is anyhow indicative of the real economy? Just putting that out there.
Another one bites the dust. Eddie Bauer is filing for bankruptcy. The sportswear company says it's restructuring its business, blaming declining sales for the decision. This marks the third time that Eddie Bauer has filed for bankruptcy protection. The company says most of its nearly 180 stores will remain open, but it will wind down certain locations across the U.S. and Canada. Let's go to some new research. It shows it's getting harder for Americans to stay out of debt. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York says that U.S. household debt is now at a record high $8.8 trillion. This report says debt totals for credit cards, student loans, auto loans, all hitting record highs.
Jesus. So nothing says healthy economy like $13 trillion in debt of mortgage, 1.6 trillion of auto debt, 1.6 trillion of student debt, 1.28 trillion of credit card debt, and then, just random other debt, like, paying for a pizza over the course of 4 payments. So I don't know where she got 8 trillion, unless it doesn't include the mortgages. Well, hold on. 1.6 plus 1.6 is 3.3, right? Roughly. So then you got 1.28. Let's just round that up to 0.3. So then that's 4.6, 5.6. Yeah, I'm not sure where she got 8 trillion out of that. But still, we are the largest generation that's in debt, and the cost of living continues to rise, right? Cost of goods continues to rise, and the tariffs are obviously not helping that in any situation. And now we have job scarcity once again. So we have all of the makings of a massive, massive economic collapse that is looming right around the corner, and it is entirely due to this regime's economic policy. So, the fact that this doesn't make the news nearly as much as, say, like ICE murdering people, or the Epstein files, or invading Venezuela, or threatening Iran with war, right? It's not surprising that it doesn't outweigh those 4 things, because that's pretty major. But this is the most personally affecting news that it literally impacts us as individuals. Every single one of us are a part of these 5 areas. Every single one of us. Well, maybe not the student debt part. But the overwhelming majority of us... Well, okay, no, I take that back. Also, maybe not mortgages. The overwhelming majority of us probably have a car loan, credit card debt, and then probably other sundry, expenses. I forget that rent isn't considered in the mortgages, or the housing, right? Obviously, rent wouldn't be a mortgage, but that is, like, they never do include the cost of rent when it comes to housing. So, anywho, what I'm getting at is we are the most indebted generation. And I don't mean like millennials or Gen Z or something. I mean, the people that are alive in the United States of America are the most indebted people in our nation's history. And our economy continues to slosh away. Jobs, prices of goods continues to go up. Protections continue to go away. And the only changes that happen to our economy are things that'll keep us in even greater debt, like 50-year mortgages. So, we should be taking this stuff just as seriously as all of the hot button topics that are very easy to talk about, that and very emotionally charged, right? This should also be emotionally charged. When you see these numbers, you should be appalled and infuriated and demanding better. Because why is it that everybody under the sun is expected to be financially responsible except for billionaires and our government? Those are the questions we need to be asking.
Brings us to a series we call In This Economy. The nonpartisan Tax Foundation says that President Trump's new tariffs cost the average U.S. household $1,000 last year. That number could increase to $1,300 this year if existing tariffs stay in place. President Trump credits tariffs for bringing in revenue for the federal government, but this research calls them a tax on American families. This comes at a time when many households are already frustrated with the high cost of living. As we head toward the midterms, the latest Quinnipiac polling shows that 56% of Americans disapprove of Trump's handling of the economy, while 39% approve. Joining me now is Erica York.
Well, again, when everybody is struggling, the job market is crashing, and the cost of goods continues to rise, and this regime is the responsible party for that. I mean, it is what it is. Okay. We don't need to listen to the punditry. I'm the pundit. We're supposed to be listening to me talking about it. Okay. San Francisco.
They see our power!
After 11 months of negotiations, San Francisco teachers are on strike.
The district's giving us numbers that just don't add up!
San Francisco educators said they want a 4.5% increase in wages each year for 2 years. Initially, the district offered 2% raises for the next 3 years, but now it has offered 3% each year for 2 years. Superintendent Maria Sue said the district is trying to avoid further cuts to schools as it faces a $100 million budget deficit for next year.
San Francisco Unified School District does not have unlimited funds.
So this is the part that really, well, you know what? There's only so much time left.
We are managing a structural deficit, and we are currently still under state oversight.
The district has also offered $24,000 in a health benefit allowance, which the educators union spoke out against on Monday.
We're looking for fully funded family benefits. Right now, if you have 2+ on your health care, you're paying $1,500 a month.
See, $1,500 a month for health care when we already have Medicare, when we already pay for universal health care, but we want to pay additional into health care through exchanges and health insurance brokers that offer no value whatsoever other than wealth extraction. Imagine if we had that $1,500 to put anywhere else in the economy, literally anywhere else. That would do more to help our struggling economy than literally any tax break or any sort of getting rid of one institution or a government agency or other, right? Giving people more freedom to spend their money on things that they want to spend it on rather than commodifying public goods and services would dramatically improve our economic outlook and improve the economic stability of the average American. And that's what we should be focusing on. And that's the things that we should be angry about. And instead, we're arguing about the symptoms of capitalism. We're arguing about the symptoms of fascism. We're arguing about the symptoms of corruption rather than demanding the cure, which is all of these bastards in prison and then implementing policy that is for, of, and by the people. Now, that also being said, there's $100 million worth of deficit in the education budget. Do you honestly mean to tell me that San Francisco couldn't find that $100 million from, say, the police department? Like, why is it that education always has to struggle, always has to get by the skin of their teeth, by their very fingernails, right? Just hanging on from the very edge. And then police are like, well, we want a new tank, and then the city just bends over backwards to make it happen. Usually by taking funds away from education. So why aren't we demanding, right? Why aren't the teachers demanding what they're demanding and pointing at the police budget to get it? Why aren't people who are joining them in protest pointing at the police budget and demanding the money comes from that? Like, we are very good at being angry. And we are very good at telling people what we want. But we are very awful, very, very bad at demanding the correct distribution of resources. And I think that would make a huge difference, especially in this situation. We're down by 100 million. The San Francisco Police Department probably gets like $1 billion. Peel some of that off, right? Like, oh no, no overtime for cops. Oh no, they can't sit on their asses and pulling people over all day, every day. In fact, $849 million. I'm not even making this shit up. SanFrancisco.gov. Budget. Where's the... Oh, they're not going to do it by... They're not going to do it by making it easy for us to see, are we? City sworn full duty. Well, here's some overtime. This looks like it could be... Well, some of it is police. Oh, wait. Is this just the police commission? I see. Okay, never mind. I didn't recognize what I was looking at. My bad. So this is 840 million then. Which you can't see. This is, in fact, 840 million. For fiscal year 26. And it went up by 18 million from last year, which is up 75 million from 2024, and which is up 126 million from 2023, and which is up almost 200 million from 2022. So the police budget in San Francisco has gone up from 2022 by nearly a third of 2022 levels. It has increased by 33%. What they have been given has been increased by 33%. Nearly $200 million extra. So, and look where the 200 million is going. It's not even fully accounted for. 72 to 97, 9.5 to 7, 6 to 7, 5.2 to 5.6, 2.9 to 1.3. Annual operating. Okay, that's where the majority is, right? So the operating costs have somehow skyrocketed by 160 million. You mean to tell me that in 4 years, it's 160 million more expensive to run the police department? So, all I'm saying is, if we rolled back San Francisco's police budget to 2022 levels, hell, even 2023 levels, there's your 100 million to go to San Francisco city schools. So, the reason why I bring that up, the reason why I went out of my way to find that, is because education is the first thing that is always gutted, and that money is always given to law enforcement. Always. And if you want to think of it more simply, governments always want their military, their defense systems to be as robust as possible in case the people ever decide to revolt against their shitty policies and leadership. And because police tend to be loyal to their government, right? The military tends to be loyal to the government and not the people. It works time and time again. Because, unfortunately, police doesn't serve the community. The military doesn't serve the people. It should. In principle, it does. On paper, it does. But in reality, the military serves the national foreign policy and domestic policy, and the police serve the needs of the city. And if the city decides that the people are the enemy, guess what happens? Tear gas, rubber bullets, the LRAD systems, and everything else under the sun, rather than police coming from the community, working with the community, being a part of the community, and being loyal to the community instead of the government. My point here is we have been a police state for an extremely long time in this country. We could argue that we've been a police state since the end of World War II, maybe even the end of World War I. We could argue that it's been even longer than that. But one thing is certain. If push came to shove, would your local police force protect you and your family against your city government if your city government ordered them to attack you for some reason or another? Would they question it? Would they at least stop and ask for a reason? Or would they just blindly follow orders? So, at the end of the day, law enforcement is loyal to city government. And city government doesn't want to be betrayed by law enforcement, so they keep giving away. What's interesting, though, is that Mamdani had to deal with an extremely high number of law enforcement quitting right as he was taking office. And you know what's crazy? Crime went down, which should prove to citizens everywhere that the police do not equal safety. That more often than not, more police equals more crime because they have to justify their existence. And in an extremely liberal place like San Francisco, California, the people just can't seem to get that through their heads and demand budget cuts from the police department to go to education. It's absolutely disgusting. And it's one of the reasons why we do, in fact, struggle at having anything resembling a left movement or a revolutionary movement, because we can't even focus on the actual problems. Instead of blaming the school commissioner or whatever, why are we not blaming the mayor for funding a city's police department at nearly $1 billion while the schools are $100 million short? That's all I gotta say. Education in Ohio, especially in Columbus, is in shambles due to spending cuts. Meanwhile, all people could say about my opponent, Mike Carey, is how much money he gets for the police in various counties. Right, and that's exactly the point. That is the exact same example that's happening in a red state. So it doesn't matter if it's red or blue. Both parties want a police state. And that's the thing that we need to argue against. Again, our organizing, our movements, anti-ICE, anti-Trump and all this, that's great. Keep that up. Keep that energy going. But the demands that we need to make is to defund and redistribute all the money from law enforcement and policing agencies in the first place. And also, the military doesn't need a $1.5 trillion budget. Let's just be very clear on that. He gets millions of dollars for the police. Meanwhile, education in Ohio struggles when we used to be among the best in the country. All right. Occupy Wall Street was a great example of why the NYPD has the same budget as some countries' militaries. They needed to be ready to crack skulls at the behest of their owners. Right. Police don't serve communities, and they sure as hell don't serve to protect the rights and freedoms that the Constitution enables, right? That's why when we talk about, or at least when I talk about police reform, I'm not talking about, a little bit of training and, sensitivity this or use of force that. I'm talking about a complete erasure of the system as it stands and a complete ground to top restructuring of how policing should be operated, right? If police do not support the communities first and foremost, do not take the side of the citizenry by default, then they are an occupying force. At the end of the day, that's all they are. They are occupying communities and keeping people in line. If they are not there to actually lend aid and support to people when they need it, such as when their rights are being infringed, such as when Nazis are knocking on doors, going door to door and killing people in the streets, such as, holding white-collar criminals accountable instead of protecting their business assets. It's insane to me that police are supposed to protect and serve communities, and every single cop ends up licking the boots of corporations or the city government every single chance it gets. Not once do you see, a hint of a conscience, be like, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. It's always lockstep. And the cops that do end up having a conscience and refusing to participate end up not staying cops, which makes the system worse than it would have been otherwise. So, tangent aside.
Nearly 50,000 students did not attend class on Monday. One of them is 8-year-old Santiago Garcia. His mom, Yerenia Tavares, is a janitor at ABC 7.
Yeah, I have to bring it because I don't have nobody to take care of them.
Yerenia woke up her son today and broke the news to him. School was closed indefinitely. Was it hard to wake up and have to come here today?
Yeah.
We believe our mom is still...
Thank you for your very full response on the issues that we are facing. Nancy Guthrie rant. Oh, geez. This is... Today, host Savannah Guthrie on Monday released a new direct plea to the public begging for help to find her mom, Nancy, more than 1 week after the 84-year-old was abducted. We are at an hour of desperation and we need your help. Which she said in an Instagram video speaking directly to the camera. And I don't know if this is going to bring it up, but Savannah Guthrie is one of the reporters who is breaking the Epstein story and or was a victim of it herself.
Still out there. We need your help.
Savannah Guthrie pleading for the public's help. The deadline set in ransom notes possibly connected to her mother Nancy's disappearance has now passed.
So I'm coming on just to ask you, not just for your prayers, but no matter where you are, even if you're far from Tucson, if you see anything, if you hear anything, if there's anything at all that seems strange to you, that you report to law enforcement. We are at an hour of desperation, and we need your help.
That post just hours before a deadline of 5 o'clock last night to send millions in Bitcoin to someone claiming to be Nancy Guthrie's kidnapper. There have been 2 messages from the purported kidnapper that law enforcement sources told ABC News appear to have come from the same sender using the same encryption tools to cover their tracks. But the FBI has not been able to determine whether the demand is credible, saying it's not aware of any continued communication between the Guthrie family and suspected kidnappers, nor have we identified a suspect or person of interest in this case at this time.
Yeah, but see, this is the Kash Patel FBI, who also says that there is no conspiracy and that Epstein didn't have a sex trafficking ring going on, despite himself, Jeffrey Epstein, being charged and sentenced for having a sex trafficking ring, and Ghislaine Maxwell being part of it. So I wouldn't take anything Kash Patel says with anything other than not even a grain of salt. I just wouldn't believe a goddamn thing he says so. She interviewed the Epstein victim. So that was the thing. She interviewed the victim. She has the the quote unquote testimony and the ability to platform the victims even further. So the next 2 videos are basically the FBI
coming on the air with a major
saying, I have no idea what's going on because he's a fucking podcaster in the FBI, and then the White House. We gonna play? What's going on?
Major development in the search for Nancy Guthrie, the mother of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie. ABC News has confirmed law enforcement is releasing new images of a possible subject in Nancy's disappearance. Authorities believe the 84-year-old was taken from her home against her will more than a week ago. Savannah and her siblings have made multiple emotional appeals, even offered to pay for her safe return. A possible ransom deadline passed last night, though investigators haven't determined yet if the alleged ransom notes were real. And now these images are the first sign of a possible break in the case. Let's get to ABC's chief investigative correspondent.
Well, this is what I don't get, right? If this happened a week ago and this looks like it was from a doorbell camera, that should have been the first images that were released literally the second it was discovered that this woman was kidnapped. So not only is that bad police work, it's also disingenuous. Do you expect us to believe that this evidence, which is clearly from a doorbell camera, could not have been released to the public sooner? Like, are you fucking kidding me? Or is that a attempt at protecting the safety of the kidnap victim so that the perpetrator doesn't, you know, act rashly because their identity might get revealed? Even then, I don't know. But the fact that it's being released now, and it's like, oh, it's this breaking new evidence. No, the fuck it's not. That was available within the first hour of recognizing that it was a kidnap.
Aaron Katursky. Aaron, what do we know about these images so far?
They appear to come from the doorbell camera here at Nancy Guthrie's home that had been tampered with, according to the FBI. And if you look at these images that appear in black and white, Diane, you see an individual who appears to be wearing a backpack and a mask and gloves. And one of those images, quite up close to the doorbell camera, the FBI says that is the individual tampering with the camera. The FBI says these images were previously inaccessible because the recording device had been taken, but working with the manufacturer, the FBI was able to recover these images. They are not characterizing the individual depicted in the image in any particular way, according to a message posted on social media by FBI Director Kash Patel. Previously, the FBI has said there are no suspects or persons of interest associated with Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. That now may be changing with the release of these images, though the FBI is not characterizing the individual depicted. You can see where the individual might be reaching close to the camera with a gloved hand to try and tamper with the camera before making entry. This was shortly before 2 a.m. at about 1:47 a.m. Mountain Time, according to a previous release timeline, Diane. And then at 2:12 a.m., a camera inside the house that was not set up to record images was able to detect an individual, an intruder, inside the house. And that's the window when police believe Nancy Guthrie was taken, Diane.
So this guy tampers with the recording device, and then somehow that got transmitted via the company's link or whatever, and they were able to recover it. But then the camera inside the home can't recover anything because the company there doesn't have the ability to recover anything. Like that, see what I mean? Like, again, I'm not a cop. I guess, you know, I'm not Kash Patel of the FBI. I just, you know, a lot of things, it just, it seems awful convenient that there was multiple layers of security in this lady's house, and yet they all failed for the exact moment that they needed to work, and the exact circumstances in which they needed to function, right? And I mean, like, why have a security system then? Right? Like, why have a doorbell camera if the recording part of it can just be ripped out? Why have internal video cameras in your home if they're not even gonna be useful for sending data to a cloud server by the security company you bought it from? Like, what? And okay, say you have an internal server. Do you think the average criminal is gonna know, like, oh, okay, that's an XP301. We know for a fact that that's an internal server. We got to find the internal server after we kidnap this old lady, and then we got to break the server or something. Like, they don't know that. So, like, if anything, this is just showing that everybody's going for these doorbell cameras and these home security systems are literally just creating digital floor plans and increasing state surveillance in our communities by having them accessible. Because they clearly don't serve any other useful purpose. They clearly don't if they're that easy to tamper with or that easy to defeat by simply, oh, darn, they don't record. Whoops. And they don't transmit data to our servers either. Whoops. Like, that just... Oh, I guess the only reason why you should buy a doorbell camera is if you want to give Bezos and whatever other tech company free facial recognition software and training data for the eventual police state that's being manufactured around us. Like, insane. I don't care what the White House has to say. The White House is a lying sack of shit, and they're authoritarian pieces of garbage that need to absolutely be put in prison. And their opinion, I mean, they might be the ones responsible for the fucking kidnapping in the first place via Bitcoin. Like,
we turn now to the case of Nancy Guthrie. The FBI has released surveillance images of a masked subject at her front door. The FBI director, Kash Patel, described the person as an armed individual who tampered with Guthrie's doorbell camera. Savannah Guthrie, co-host of NBC's Today Show, reacted to the images just minutes after they were released, saying, quote, "We believe she is still alive." We're joined now by Andre.
How the hell? Like, what is he even doing with the camera? He's just putting his hand in front of it? He doesn't have a tool or anything in his hand. Thank you for the follow, Napf. I think that was right. We are trying to get heads or tails out of this, which doesn't really. But I mean, also, this guy is clearly a white male, probably middle-aged, kidnapping an old lady, demanding a ransom, because the old lady is the mother of the journalist who is trying to reveal more information about the Epstein files. If this isn't a cover-up or a kidnapping to silence or whatever else, like, come on. Come on.
This person wasn't just simply stumbling onto the property, that this was very intentional. They are being very careful not to call this person a suspect just yet, but they are very focused on identifying.
Why wouldn't you call this person a suspect? And, okay, nothing that we just saw in that clip tampered with the recording device. All they did is cover the camera with grass. See, and this is exactly why. You can't trust a single. The fact that none of these journalists are pointing that out, are highlighting the fact that this is extremely questionable, and that the timing only serves one group of people. And then Kash Patel saying, we don't know if this is a suspect. At the very least, they are an accessory. Are you fucking kidding me? Greetings from Austria. Yeah. Hello. Welcome. It's funny how we keep getting people from Austria and the Netherlands on the stream and not nearly enough people from America. But you know what? I'll take it. At least y'all are getting a better part of the news from me than with the news.
Who this person is. Remember, there is a $50,000 reward that the FBI is offering. They have plastered that reward money as well as her face, Nancy Guthrie's face, on billboards across the Southwest here in Arizona.
Okay. So, not a suspect. Israel is forced to watch the stream. Yeah. Oh, I cannot wait until I have the authority to do something about Israel. Okay.
Liz, do we have a sense of timeline? I mean, essentially why it took 10 days to release and perhaps even find these images?
Yeah, it has been extremely frustrating and an agonizing wait for the family and for so many over the past 10 days waiting for some kind of image like this to emerge. You would have thought it could have come up within hours with the number of cameras that exist right now in cities and communities.
Also, this is literally the dumbest criminal. Like, you see the Ring camera and instead of like trying to hide your face more, you walk up to it and like very poorly block your face and the camera with your hand. Like, and then you choose to cover up the lens with grass. Like, This is the dumbest motherfucker on the planet, and he's also not being considered a suspect. Free Palestine from what? I mean, if you know about Israel, then you know what Palestine needs to be freed from. Like, they are literally being occupied by Israel. So, I'm not sure what you're leading into with that. Maybe it's a language barrier, I don't know. But Palestine is currently being occupied by Israel, the Zionist entity, and that needs to stop. Okay. I'm not gonna be trolled by that over something that is... We're not gonna belittle the suffering of an entire people who are being genocided in real time. We're not gonna do that. I'm not gonna... You want to be facetious and a jackass about it? Then you can get banned. Okay. So the next thing is a little snippet on the California...
In tonight's deep dive, the billionaire backlash. The debate is heating up over a proposed 5% billionaire tax in California. Over the weekend, dozens in San Francisco took part in a march for billionaires, voicing opposition, saying that the tax would lead to an exodus of wealth. The group held signs saying billionaires build your future and tip your landlord. A few dozen counter-protesters also showed up. Joining us now, Stephen Tosh.
Only in America will you have people protesting on behalf of billionaires. Are you fucking kidding me? Also, tip your landlord? Like, these have to be the scummiest human beings on earth in California to literally make that sign, for one, but for two, to literally be like, no, billionaires are doing great things. They should hoard even more wealth and make daily necessities even less accessible. Like, that's literally... We want more boot leather. Please, step on our necks. Tread on me harder. It's giving the ick. Extreme bootlicking. Extreme bootlicking. Jesus Christ.
Tosher, he's the managing principal at Hockman, Salkin, Tosher, Perez, PC, as well as a certified tax specialist. Stephen, thanks for being here. First, just sort of break down for our audience how this billionaire tax would actually work in California.
Very difficultly. It's based upon assets and net worth, which normally are comprised of illiquid assets that you couldn't sell on the market. So it would be quite an administrative burden to impose and collect such a tax. It would be hard.
And it would be a one-time thing, or you get taxed every year? How would that work if you were a lucky person who was a billionaire, I guess?
Right now, the way it's drafted in the proposed initiative, it's one time. But I think the fear is once you enact one tax like that, it'll come again and perhaps again. But right now, it's just one time.
How many billionaires, Stephen, actually live in California? What do you make of that argument that there would be an exodus of people, an exodus of wealth because of this tax?
I don't know how many, but I do believe there would be an unfortunate exodus of the billionaires. They pay a substantial amount of income tax to the state right now. We have one of the highest rates in the country. And I'd be concerned that if you would impose a one-time tax like this, we would lose the long stream of income tax they pay every year.
I think we all...
All right. Counter proposal. Counter proposal. So, billionaires pay the most taxes in California. That's not true because we can pull that shit up and prove that that's not what's happening. I get that this guy's a professional CPA or whatever, right? But there might be an exodus from California over a one-time 5% wealth tax. Okay. Counter proposal. You pay this 5% tax in California, you get to keep your heads attached to your necks, and you get to remain in the positions of power and authority that you find yourselves in. You get to continue to, you know, collude with your fellow billionaires, committing atrocities with your fellow billionaire pedophile friends while buying and selling elections for the fun of it, and then, you know, trying to enslave the human race. You can do all that with your 5% one-time tax, right? With your 5% one-time tax, you can still be pieces of garbage. Or my proposal, as Congressman Ronan and future president of these United States, we will seize all of your wealth, federalize all of your businesses, charge you with treason, collusion, conspiracy to commit treason, and then the few of them that were in the Epstein files, all of those charges, and those that weren't, accessory, because you fucking knew and did nothing. Followed by execution. So, your choices are pay 5% of your wealth once and still get to be bastards, or roll the dice and hope that I can't catch you once I finally make it into Congress or the White House. Because quite frankly, paying your taxes is the compromise. Redistributing your wealth is the compromise. You being allowed to live is the compromise. 903 billionaires in America. They control 90% of the entire wealth in this country. Control every single industry. Have literally manipulated elections from school board to the presidency, violating our Constitution and our rights. And the only thing people are demanding is that you pay your taxes. You should be fucking grateful that the majority, that the moderate position isn't your fucking heads. For now, that is still the extreme position. But lucky for me, I don't care if I am seen as extreme. I care about serving my country and the American people. And the American people deserve better than the 903 billionaires who are literally plundering our country to death so that they can have just a little bit much more. So, the alternative to that 5% tax is me and the people who think like me. And that number, although currently not the majority or even a moderate position, is a growing number. And that should keep you up at night, which it is. Unironically, that is exactly what keeps you up at night. Billionaires are terrified of class consciousness, which is why they continue to divide, continue to raise prices, continue to keep us depressed and suppressed, financially, economically, emotionally, physically, mentally. Because as soon as we discover class consciousness, they know the jig is up. They are going to be torn limb from limb in the streets. Which is still a better, well, no. No, that would be even worse. At that point, I would be the moderate, right? Paying your taxes, that would be the godsend, right? Paying your taxes and you get to stay doing what you're doing. Going to prison and eventually executed after we seize all your assets and nationalize your businesses. Or the raging masses ripping you apart limb from limb. And then that happens. So, all I'm saying is, the moderate position, the least of their concerns, should be paying taxes. Just throwing that out there.
Welcome back to The Takeout. The government has unsealed records connected to the recent FBI raid that seized 2020 election ballots from Fulton County, Georgia. The move comes after the county, which encompasses Atlanta and some of its suburbs, filed a motion requesting the return of the records taken during a recent FBI raid, and for officials to explain what exactly they were looking for. We're joined now by CBS News election law contributor David Becker, who is also the executive director of the Center for Election Innovation and Research. This is the guy you call when there are questions about ballots and irregularities and whatnot. And thank goodness we're starting yet another election cycle with you. But as you were saying during the break, a lot earlier than we normally would because this stuff is kicked up so soon.
It's only February, Ed. It's incredible.
Give us a sense. This is a 22-page release here. What does this help us sort out today regarding what the government was looking for?
Well, I'll be honest, when I knew this was coming out, I was expecting a lot more in here to justify the seizure of election records from an election more than 5 years ago. And it's pretty weak, I mean, to be perfectly honest. In this affidavit signed by an FBI agent justifying that they had probable cause to believe that there was evidence that related to the commission of a federal crime, they basically admitted there's no intent. Their own studies that they cited in there said there was no intent to do anything wrong, and intent is a necessary element of proving any federal crime. They didn't have any allegations with regard to election theft at all. In fact, they admit that the ballots were counted 3 times, once entirely by hand, and confirmed the results in Atlanta and in Fulton County. They don't mention anything about foreign interference or a foreign nexus, which would have been necessary to invoke any jurisdiction for the Director of National Intelligence, and she was, of course, inside that room. And lastly, there were this big statute of limitations issue, this 5-year statute of limitations on any of these federal crimes. They don't mention the statute of limitations at all. And so when we're looking at this document now, what's pretty clear is that 5+ years after the election, dozens of court cases, more review than any election in world history, over a year now of the Trump administration being in total power of the federal government. And all they could possibly allege in this affidavit, if you take it at its word, is that there was some human error on a long night working an election in the middle of a global pandemic, and that error didn't have any impact on the outcome of the election.
I mean,
And there it is! The election wasn't stolen in 2020. Shocking, right? And here's the thing. I didn't vote for Biden. I didn't want Biden to win. I thought he was a piece of garbage. But at the same time, he won with a significant margin in 2020. What we should be talking about and what we should be having investigations in is the 2024 election results, where Trump miraculously won every single swing state by the exact margin needed to prevent an automatic recount. Which arguably there was no recount conducted at all anyway. So it was just taken at face value because it met that minimum threshold. And by the way, we're talking about 0.5% in all cases was the threshold, which is usually the margin of error in polling and statistics. Actually, usually it's like 2 to 3%. So 0.5% as an acceptable statistical error in counting votes in an election is either a testament to the technology being involved or the integrity of the systems themselves. Either which way, the fact that the thresholds were met by that minimum across 7 states, miraculously in his favor, that is what needs to be investigated by third-party investigations, or the states themselves. Obviously, we couldn't trust the federal government to do that, because they wouldn't, at least not until I'm elected into Congress. So, hopefully, that lays that to rest. 2020 was not stolen. 2024... What recount? The Atlanta, Georgia recount, where Tulsi Gabbard showed up to see if there was any international interference, and there wasn't, according to the FBI, which is still, compromised by this administration. Despite being compromised, this FBI still said, ain't nothing wrong about the 2020 elections. So, moving on.
A break from long-standing Washington tradition, the Trump administration is not inviting any Democratic governors to the National Governors Association's meeting at the White House next week. Democratic governors Wes Moore and Jared Polis have also been excluded from the political organization's dinner with the president. CBS News correspondent Natalie Brand is at the White House following.
Is that even... like, the Democratic governors' events... right? Like these events of the governors. It doesn't seem to me like that's something that's optional. Like, if you're the governor of a state, you need to attend this meeting. this event. The dinner, maybe not so much, but the event, the governor's commission or whatever they just said, I feel like that kind of matters.
This for us, Natalie, explain why these Democrats are being left out of these what are supposedly bipartisan events, and what's been their reaction to the exclusion.
Yeah, Vlad, this is an annual tradition that goes back decades, and we're talking about two separate events. The meeting of the National Governors Association that happens in Washington.
Okay, National Governors Association. Okay. National Governors Association. Holy crap, I can't type, but that's not the point. Is an American political org founded in 1908. Are the governors of 50 states, territories. Members came from all over. And what do you do? And task forces. Governors work together across party lines to confront common challenges and shape federal policy. It advances dialogue, policy innovation, information sharing, and bipartisan priorities. Well, that explains why this isn't happening, because it involves teamwork and cooperation. Things that this regime has proven itself unwilling and unable to do. So, that explains that.
Every winter usually includes a White House component where bipartisan governors come here to the White House and meet with cabinet secretaries and staffers. The NGA says this year the White House is choosing to invite only Republicans, saying they're very disappointed that that is going to now be a partisan event, and saying for that reason it's not going to be an official NGA event. And then there's the black tie dinner, which again is a bipartisan dinner since the NGA is bipartisan. But this year, we are learning that invitations to Maryland Governor Wes Moore and Jared Polis have been pulled, that they are not invited. Moore actually revealed this in a statement, saying in part that as the nation's only black governor, I cannot ignore that being singled out for exclusion from this bipartisan tradition carries an added weight, whether that was the intent or not. He also called it an example of blatant disrespect and a snub to the spirit of bipartisan federal-state partnership. Now, other Democratic governors are starting to speak out, including New Jersey's Mikey Sherrill, who says that if they're not invited, then she may not attend. Here's what she told CNN.
I won't be attending if we're not having a bipartisan group of all of the governors invited to the event.
So if he doesn't invite Jared Polis and Wes Moore, you're not going?
No, I will not be going. This is ridiculous.
I guarantee she's going to end up going, because Democrats standing their ground is, well, we haven't seen it since, I want to say JFK, but I feel like that's opening the door for other commentary. But still, I will believe that a Democratic governor stands up to this administration, this regime, standing up for the American people at all, once they do more than just offer lip service on CNN, because that in of itself is ridiculous in my book. Have we covered the whining about criticism of leadership here over at the Olympics and the Super Bowl? We did cover a little bit of the Olympics, but not the Super Bowl yet. Bad Bunny is on his way. I think that's going to be towards the end of the stream so that we can end on a light note instead of heaviness. Although, for all intents and purposes, this is one of the lighter streams we have had in weeks, because it's mostly been dominated by ICE and murder and all this other shit. So the fact that we have partisan infighting and corruption, just regular corruption, and not fascism, is actually kind of a breath of fresh air.
Some new reporting on Democrats' ambition to retake Congress in the upcoming and very hard-fought midterm.
What would be the point? What is the point of Democrats taking over Congress if they constantly pass Republican legislation anyway? They cross party lines to pass conservative bills. And it's not like the split is 60-40, right? Or 55-45, right? It's 50-50. All the Democrats have to do is stand their ground and force the Republicans to the negotiation table. That's it. They have the numbers for that. It is a 50% split in both houses. But, oh, we're going to take over the House and the Senate in this coming midterm election. Bullshit. And for what purpose? Nobody believes you and nobody trusts you. And the fact that people might vote Democrat just because they're disgusted with Republicans doesn't mean they support you. So, they have to be serious about not bending for Team Red. And when have they ever shown a serious willingness to do that? They haven't. That's the problem. At no point in time have Democrats actually stood their ground against Trump in either term. So, let's hear the strategy.
Midterm election. So let's go live now to CBS News political reporter Hunter Woodall breaking all this down. Hunter, you're focusing on 5 traditionally GOP districts across the nation that are now real estate for Democrats. What are you seeing by way of strategy?
Well, Reed, what's really interesting here, so you had the campaign arm of the House Democrats come out today and say, okay, they're going to target 5 districts in parts of the country that, honestly, in a typical midterm election year, I don't think we would have seen come online. What's notable, these are parts of the country that are redder. These are parts of the country with Republican members of Congress. The Democrats are now thinking they might be able to flip. Now, when you look at this map and when I look at it and analyze the numbers, these are tough races, and these are not likely to be these races that traditionally would come online for Democrats. We're talking here a race in Colorado, a race in South Carolina, a race in Virginia, a race in Minnesota, and a race in Montana. These are these.
So they think Mike Carey isn't worth going after, which is hilarious. Because Mike Carey is not a paragon of virtue in his own district. There is a staunch divide between the Carey Republicans and the non-Carey Republicans. Those who are pro-Trump aren't necessarily pro-Carey, even though Carey is pro-Trump. There is a stark divide between the Republicans in my district because Carey is pro-business, vehemently pro-business, and everybody else that pays attention realizes they're getting fucked. So I have a coin toss of active Republican voters voting for me simply because I am not him, because of their disenfranchisement. Now, obviously, we don't rely on that. We're going to keep pushing and building a platform. But, like, the fact that Democrats are going after like a blue state like Colorado and a red district in a blue state, okay, Montana, that makes sense. Minnesota, but Minnesota was a blue state to begin with. The Republican being weakened because of the atrocities being committed by ICE, like, no, you don't need to invest in places that are obviously going to go your way. They should. And I'm not even wanting them to do this, honestly, because that makes my life a little harder. But the Democrats should be going after the vulnerable Republicans in red states that have their constituency on the fence, which means they're not doing their due diligence. They're not doing real research. They're just seeing geopolitics happening in those cities and think, or in those states and think, we can probably influence that. Democrats are fucking stupid. And 5 wins isn't going to be enough to flip the district either. Flip the House. It's just not, because, again, all of the gerrymandering that's occurring across the country, the electoral fraud that is going to be perpetrated. Like, if you think the general election is going to be fair in 2026, you're high. Honestly, I think it's about 50-50 if the primaries are going to be fair. Like, let's be honest. And I'm running in a primary, and I'm even saying it's still... Anyway, but let's hear, you know what, let's hear it. Why not?
Contests that, Democrats are hoping that they can expand the map.
They weren't willing when they won 2006 and in 2018, right? Democrats controlled all 3 branches of government twice in the past 20 years, and they fucking fumbled it every single time. So yeah, no, Ridiculous.
And when you look at these kinds of seats, the idea is if these races turn out being competitive after not being so competitive in recent years, that may spell a sort of Democratic blue wave. And right now, Democrats are hoping that, but they're still waiting to see if the numbers can prove that out.
Well, you mentioned.
Okay, so there is no strategy. Again, they're just like, ooh, this looks vulnerable. Let's go for it. Fucking idiots. But
Welcome back to the
imagine
takeout.
that.
Apologies for the cliche, but as you know, everything's bigger in Texas, including political beef. Congressional candidate Colin Allred says he wants an apology from Democratic Senate candidate James Tallarico. As a social media influencer without evidence accused Tallarico of making a racially insensitive remark about Allred that Tallarico denies. Allred detailed his conversation with Tallarico in an interview with CBS News Texas. Take a listen.
Honestly, like, Democrats accusing other Democrats of racially insensitive remarks, that is literally the oldest trick in the book. When I was running for the DNC chair, Jammu Green accused me of being racist because I used the term speaking truth to power. Don't get me wrong. In my defense, I was not aware at the time that speaking truth to power was actually a Black Panther call to arms, right? I genuinely didn't know that. You want to know why? Because I was active duty and ignorant in politics up until around 2015, 2016. And I was not well versed in activism regardless. So me saying truth to power was literally me referring to people in power and me highlighting the truth that they are following my rhetoric and my platform and me holding them accountable to that. So no, Democrats accusing other Democrats of being racist, fuck off. Right, and a certain speaker went down in disgrace both times. You're right. So, I don't know that this, I mean, it is a story in the sense that it is a story, but like, par for the course.
On the phone, and I offered him a chance to apologize, and he declined to do that.
So he didn't apologize?
That's right.
Did that surprise you?
It is surprising. I think that's the easiest thing to do in this situation.
I see you shaking your head, Joel Payne, who is part of our conversation here, Democratic strategist, CBS News contributor, and CBS News political director Finn Gomez. Joel Payne, why shake your head in disgust or in concern?
Family business should stay inside the family. I don't know what James Tallarico said to this influencer. It seems like whatever.
Are we serious? Okay, like, I'm not trying to interrupt, but have you guys been seeing these headlines that are scrolling at the bottom? Oh, that's right. I forgot I put that. I guess my lighting is a little off. Hold on. Will this fix it or will it make it worse the other way? Perfect. Okay. So we're still murdering fishermen off the coast of Venezuela or Colombia. We are still doing that. The United States of America, despite having invaded Venezuela and kidnapped their foreign head of state, despite doing that, we are still murdering people in international waters. And prior to that was this headline: deadly car crash. Now, thousands of mothers were flagged to police over flawed drug tests at childbirth. What the fuck is that about? Like, that's something we need to be talking about. 5 workers from a mining company found dead in Mexico. That's a problem. Chappelle Roan leaves Wasserman Talent Agency after his mentions in the Epstein files. That's what, I mean, that's more noteworthy than this. And as this gentleman said, keep your family business within the family. So these headlines, terrifying, appalling. Why in the hell are we not talking about that? Why? Where's that in the takeout with Major Garrett? That's just my 2 cents, I guess. And that isn't me directing ire at Anna. I'm pointing out, like, that's some fucked up shit to just be at the bottom of a headline as a scroll by. Like, whereas they're actively talking about Democratic infighting while thousands of mothers were flagged to police over flawed drug tests at childbirth. Like, what's up with that? Thousands of mothers, were they on drugs? Was it fake results? Are they using that as an excuse to seize their children and deport them? Right? Like, what's going on? The people want to know. How is that not what's being discussed, and instead it's Democratic infighting? Okay, here's another congressional map.
The Democratic Party is expanding the number of congressional districts it's looking to win in this year's midterm elections. This morning, the Democratic congressional campaign...
Ohio's turning blue, according to Democrats. That's not going to happen. But it looks specifically like they're talking about the same 5 in this news thing. They're not talking about...
Committee unveiled 5 additional districts it is targeting this November. You see them highlighted here, which brings the total number of districts considered in play by the party to 44. Republicans
44.
Currently hold a slim majority of 218 to Democrats 200.
Exactly. And, you know, when the Republicans were in a minority, they still forced their policies through during the Obama administration and the Biden administration. Why? Because they played dirty and forced the Democrats' hands. And the Democrats haven't done a single fucking thing to undermine the Republican policy initiative. So giving Democrats power is like giving children guns and expecting them to win wars. Because that's not what's going to happen. That's the opposite of what's going to happen. In fact, maybe a better metaphor that's less distressing to everyone would be like giving children sugar and caffeine and expecting them to go to bed at night and not be crazy for hours on end afterwards. Like, giving Democrats power and expecting them not to squander it is like giving kids candy and expecting them not to eat it. Giving me chocolate chip cookies and expecting me not to eat them. Like, are you out of your damn mind?
14. This is in the House of Representatives. CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe joins us from the White House with a look at how the president could approach the midterms. Ed, good morning. Traditionally, a president's party suffers during the midterm elections, especially in their second term. So what is Mr. Trump's strategy? How optimistic?
No, that's only true if the president is unpopular, unliked, and their policies are garbage. But, you know.
Might he and his team feel 9 months out?
Sure. Well, first of all, if maybe we can bring back that map with those 5 new districts just to give you a sense of how bullish Democrats are now feeling about this. Once they start talking about making races in Montana, southern Minnesota, south side of Virginia, and that 1st district of South Carolina competitive, they're starting to smell something in the water that suggests they've got a shot here at not only taking the majority, but possibly stretching into the double digits, which would be quite something given the narrow margins we've had in the House the last few years. So how does the president counteract this? Well, first of all, he's been spending the last several months telling people he knows the history, as you mentioned, Errol, that second-term presidents suffer in this first midterm election of their second term. And in essence, he's doing that to scare the base and to say, remember, you've got to show up to vote to keep this momentum going.
Well, and he's also talking about deploying ICE into the polling locations. So if he is smart, which he's not, he would, what's the word I'm looking for? He would concentrate all of his forces in the districts that might turn blue. That's what he should do. But if he stretches himself thin and tries to cover all polling locations in all states, then it's not going to work. On top of that, it's not legal to do that. But, you know, legality, morality, ethical, whatever. This regime clearly doesn't give a shit about that. Which brings up the next point. Say Trump does try and use intimidation tactics during the midterms, like the primaries and the general. If Democrats don't speak out about that in the first place, then why the fuck do they deserve more seats to begin with? Because if they're not going to cry foul of actual election interference, then why vote for them at all? If they don't have the spine to stand up to him now when everything is at stake, why would they stand up to him with a majority? Democrats are literally controlled opposition. And the sooner and faster people understand that and just infiltrate every single primary, just run as a Democrat, run as a Republican, but primary the incumbents and then vote for those people, not the incumbents. The sooner people realize it's the incumbents that are the fucking problem, not necessarily the party structure, the sooner we can get rid of this nonsense. All of this bullshit that we have been dealing with. But what do I know?
He talked about this in a Fox Business interview that's airing later today. Take a listen.
I think we have the greatest economy actually ever in history. Now we have the hottest country anywhere in the world. That's said by everybody. We have the hottest country in the world.
Yeah, thanks to global warming.
I guess I have to sell that because we should win in a landslide, and we'll do everything we can to do it.
Yeah, we'll do everything we can to do it, which is a threat. We are going to interfere in this election. We have said it subtly, we are saying it less subtly, and then when push comes to shove, we are going to do it loudly. He has already threatened to nationalize the election system. He has already threatened to send ICE to polling locations. He'll probably try and coordinate with cities to make their police officers present at polling locations as well. He might even activate the guard. So that is a threat. And as we have seen, every time he threatens to do something, at least this go around, he follows through. So take it seriously. This regime fully intends to rig the 2026 midterm elections. Now, whether that's just the general or if that includes the primaries, I don't know. But it's definitely at least the general.
The issue is, if he has to be saying that, is it indeed the hottest country? Is the economy really booming? You look at recent CBS News polling, like the one we released last week, survey suggests no. Americans...
Okay, shut the fuck up. Okay, so getting away from electoral politics, immigration.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. I'm Nermeen Sheikh with Amy Goodman. The Children of Dilley, that's the title of a new ProPublica investigation into the South Texas Family Residential Center.
So we had a good amount of just regular news, right? The economy, electoralism, the Olympics, FBI investigations, kidnappings, right? Well, don't worry, folks. We still have a dystopia nightmare section of the stream for you, starting now.
A sprawling ICE detention complex in the town of Dilley, a few dozen miles from the southern border with Mexico. It's run by the private prison company Core Civic. Dilley was...
So, we have for-profit, privately owned concentration camps where we are currently keeping children. In case you didn't pick up on that.
First opened by the Obama administration in 2014.
Which was started by our Lord and Savior, Obama. So, Obama walked by creating this so Trump could run, filling it with children. Outstanding.
In a moment, we'll be joined by a ProPublica investigative reporter who went inside Dilley. But first, we turn to the voices of two children held inside. This is a 9-year-old girl from Venezuela, Suzette Fernandez, speaking to ProPublica, describing what life is like for her at Dilley, where she's been held for over 50 days.
Honestly, I don't feel good because there's always an officer around, like bothering me. I can't go anywhere, and if I need to go to the bathroom, they won't let me because I have to go with my mom. So it's annoying, and I just have to stay in my room.
And this is 14-year-old Ariana Velasquez reading a letter she wrote while detained at Dilley. She's a high school student from Honduras who's lived in the United States with her mom for 7 years.
Hello, my name is Ariana V. I'm 14 years old and I'm from Honduras. I've been detained for 45 days and I have never felt so much fear to go to a place as I feel here. Every time I remind myself that once I go back to Honduras, a lot of dangerous things could happen to my mom and I. My younger siblings haven't been able to see their mom in more than a month. They're very young and you need both of your parents when you're growing up. Since I got to this center, all you will feel is sadness and mostly depression.
Those were the words of Ariana Velasquez, a 14-year-old girl from Honduras detained at...
Now, I will say this. Thank God they aren't telling us about the brutality and the living conditions, starvation, the sanitary conditions and all that, because it's bad enough listening to these kids talking about how scary it is and how depressing it is and how they are literally being kept in a single room with their parent. Like, again, these people, these children, are being locked in essentially a small bedroom, a jail cell. And we know that jail cells aren't particularly roomy. Now imagine you're in a jail cell and you're a child. Imagine putting your child in a jail cell. That's bad enough, right? And it is. That is atrocious. It is appalling. It is disturbing. It is infuriating. Now, imagine you are in that same jail cell with your child. I don't know how, and the fact that in 10 hours this has only gotten 8,900 views, this should be fucking viral. This should have 800 million views. This should be a global story. And the fact that it's not, we can blame the algorithm, we can blame apathy of Americans, we can blame any number of things. But it's the fact that not only is this story not going viral, or anything to do with this story going viral, not particularly this video, it's the fact that it is happening at all, and it isn't even being covered in the news. Like, that is not one of the most top airing news stories in the world right now. The fact that this is happening at all, and I am sitting here streaming, is such a glaring example of my privilege that I can sit here safe and sound and be outraged at the absolute diabolical treatment of children in Texas at the border, and go into all the minute details of how Obama started it so Trump could fill it in. We as a people, as a country, need to be outraged. We need to be harassing the shit out of Diley, mayor, city council, whatever. Maybe we're not going to get very far with the governor of Texas. The fact that there aren't 24/7, 365, hundreds of thousands of protesters outside that facility. Right? This is happening on U.S. soil, and it's for profit. I really don't know how else to express how utterly, truly fucked up this is. And how absolutely demoralizing it is that there is not more attention being put on this story. One of many things I intend to rectify as your next congressman and future president.
Dilley. We're joined now by ProPublica investigative reporter Micah Rosenberg. Welcome to Democracy Now!, Micah. Tell us more about Ariana's story and the children detained at Dilley, whom you spoke to.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I think one of the main takeaways here is that children who are at this center, in the past, this center had mainly been used to hold families who were recently crossing the border. Many who, since the Obama administration, it's been open and families were coming there in the hopes of coming into the United States for the first time. But now there's been a real shift because border crossings have dropped to record lows, and many of the children who are now being sent there are being arrested by ICE around the country. And some of them, like Ariana, have been living here for years. You know, they speak perfect English, as you heard. They were detained sometimes in the middle of their school years. And in some cases, they're now entrenched American lives. In the case of Ariana, she has two younger U.S. citizen brother and sister, a kindergartner and a toddler, who were not sent to the detention center. So she and her mother were separated from them.
Can you talk, Micah, about CoreCivic running Dilley and talk about who is profiting financially from the locking up of children?
Yeah. By the way, let's take some notes, because as far as being tried in the Nuremberg trials, it's not just the ICE agents and the cabinet members and the administration. No. It's going to be all of these for-profit pieces of garbage as well. They are also going to the Nuremberg-style trials, and they will also hang for their crimes. Like that. So take notes.
Well, the operator of this facility is CoreCivic, as you mentioned. It's a private prison firm that has operated ICE detention centers for many, many years. The other major private prison firm is Geo Group, and there's also other firms that run ICE detention centers. And so these are sort of long-standing companies that have worked in coordination with ICE. They say that they're subject to a number of audits and oversight, that they take health and safety as a top priority.
Right. And they're also the part that doesn't allow Congress people to go onto their facilities.
But now there's, because of the huge amount of money that's being injected into ICE and especially into detention, these companies are set to earn more money as they expand. And there's other companies that are interested in sort of getting in the detention game. We've written
Which is disturbing, that creating concentration camps is not just a part of our economy. It is a growing part of our economy and a thriving part of our economy. Which, by the way, once we run out of brown people to fill these concentration camps with, you do realize it's poor people who are next, right? You don't build hard facilities for detaining people and expand those centers because you want a free country. You do that because you want to imprison as many people as possible as a threat to those who remain free, so that they do not rise up and overthrow your ass, drag you into the streets, and rip you limb from limb. The fact that we have a for-profit growing industry for concentration camps, and that people don't seem to realize that that means they have a future seat there, is absolutely insane. And I cannot emphasize enough, these kinds of books highlight the very shit that is happening today with this. So, I'm clearly not able to emotionally deal with this story, because we are imprisoning children in concentration camps for profit, and most people can't be bothered to even pay attention. Again, 9,000 views. Oh, so it is growing, at least. Maybe I'll go ahead and share this on my Facebook. Oh, that was bad. That was almost bad. I'll share. I almost doxed myself. You almost saw what my social media looks like. All right. I'm going to share this video because it needs to be seen. It just fucking needs to be seen. So, anywho, we're still going to be talking about ICE, but
if you don't want to be called a fascist regime or secret police, then stop acting like one. Now, you are aware, of course, and there's numerous well-documented instances of people, American citizens, being asked to show and prove their citizenship. Do you know what other regimes in the 20th century required similar proof of citizenship?
Yes, sir.
What?
Sir, there was various nefarious regimes that did that.
Is Nazi Germany one?
Yes, but
Is the Soviet Union one? I honestly,
have
sir,
to
I'm
stop
asking
you
the
right
questions. Is the Soviet Union one?
Yes, sir, but I totally, this is the wrong type of questioning. You
No,
should be asking me.
I'll tell you what the wrong type
But
of
actually,
thing
sir,
is. Sir, it's my...
So, do you know what kind of regimes forced people to stop and show their papers were? Yes, of course. They were nefarious regimes. Okay, great. Was Nazi Germany one of them? Well, yes. That should have been the end of the discussion. You admit that you are doing the same thing Nazi Germany did. End of discussion. You are doing what Nazi Germany did, and you admit it. And then the Stalinist Russia, or USSR, right? The Soviet Union. I wasn't aware that they did that, but you know what? Fuck it. Well, for all intents and purposes, they did, right? All I'm saying is, if you keep bringing up known dictatorships, known bad actor governments that did bad things, you're like, yeah, they did that too. And you're still going to argue? Like, buddy.
Holocaust Museum
reclaiming
is
my
not at 14th
time,
and
sir.
Independence. If you want to go see
Reclaiming my
Nazism,
time,
that's what
Mr.
it is.
Chairman.
It's not the men and women of vice that are out.
And see, this is the shit that conservatives always do. They talk over you, forcing you to either stop talking or talk over them as well. And this happens in debate. It happens in congressional hearings. It happens regardless. It's infuriating. It even happened when I was on the CNN debate stage with Democrats. They fucking did the same thing. And I think it's so blatantly childish to just try and talk over each other. Especially since it's a microphone, right? My voice carries, right? I obviously need a microphone to talk into so that it can be transitioned into the stream. Otherwise, you wouldn't hear me, right? That being said, if you and me were in a room and both of us were talking, it would be laughable for me to overpower you with the power of my own voice. Easily accomplished. I don't care who you are. There are probably drill instructors and I think Morgan Freeman. Drill instructors and Morgan Freeman can probably overpower my voice, volume or timbre or whatever, right? But when it's a microphone, it's all on fair game, right? Because it's supposed to pick up your voice, which makes it even more chaotic. Now, Mr. Goldman's like, I'm reclaiming my time. Chairman, reclaiming my time. I'd let him finish. I'd let Mr. Lyons finish. I'd be like, all right, Chairman, that was 30 seconds that I still get to my time. I can do this all fucking day. You wanna sit here and beat your chest and try and act like a child, talking over me while spewing forth that you were doing the same things as Nazis and the Soviet Union and defending it? You are only making my job that much easier. You are condemning yourself by trying to act like a petulant child. But I will reclaim more of my time. Again, this man, right? So Congress, this man is probably a lawyer. This man was probably a lawyer, right? I am not a lawyer. And yet somehow I am going to be better able to navigate this kind of tomfoolery than the two professional, well-qualified members of government. It's laughable.
Out there doing it every day. So to say it to men and women of ICE,
Mr. Chairman, I'm reclaiming my time. I would like my time back, please. Please give me another 15 seconds because he was unnecessarily speaking. You said in your opening...
Or, and hear me out, cut off the fucking mic. Crazy. Just... And then they'll be like this. Instead of, being heard. Again, free speech is not a guaranteed platform. And this isn't a debate. It is a congressional hearing. When it is not your turn to speak, mute. Chairman, I want the button to mute his fucking microphone so he can only speak after I ask him a question.
Statement that references to ICE as the Gestapo or the secret police encourages threats against ICE agents.
100%.
The problem is you have it backwards, sir. People are simply making valid observations about your tactics, which are un-American and outright fascist. So I have a simple suggestion. If you don't want to be called a fascist regime or secret police, then stop acting like one. But people are simply just observing what they are seeing.
Mr. Goldman is trying really hard to sound like one of the cool kids and failing. This is how you handle that. Mr. Lyons, your ICE agents are acting like the Gestapo by stopping everybody and demanding to see their papers, by going door to door, which is in violation of the Fourth Amendment. And again, looking for problems. Show me your papers, show me your identity, so on and so forth. You are acting like a secret police force. You are conducting extrajudicial murder of citizens, of people who are dissenting by exercising their First Amendment right to dissent against you, and then threatening them with worse. You are invading American cities at the behest of the president, rather than sticking to your mandate, which is dealing with criminals and actually investigating crimes committed by immigrants with an actual judicial warrant. Now, I will grant Mr. Lyons that your agency isn't unique in conducting these activities or these atrocities, because every single law enforcement agency in America since the end of the Civil War and the birth of prison labor have been conducting these atrocities against Black and brown and Asian Americans ever since. And most notable, most recent, was the George Floyd protests where cops murdered George Floyd. Granted, there have been dozens, if not hundreds since then, which have either made it into the national news or not, or have been drowned out by the fact that you murdered American citizens in cold blood. So don't sit there and pretend you aren't Gestapo or fascist when you are following in the footsteps of the law enforcement that came before you. I mean, that's a pretty good rebuttal, isn't it? That's a pretty good in your face, Mr. Lyons. And honestly, far more truthful, because again, the Israeli occupation of Palestine didn't begin on October 7th, and fascism in America didn't start on January 21st, 2025. Like, let's be very real. The police state has been around for a very fucking long time. ICE is just now not being subtle about it and also targeting white people for the first time. And I say for the first time because, lest you forget, the Irish and the Italians weren't considered white until after the fact. So, schoolyard scuffle. Wonderful. What do we got here?
Congress is facing a major time crunch before funding lapses for the entire Department of Homeland Security at the end of this week. And there are no signs that Republicans and Democrats are anywhere close to a deal. Senate Democrats did release a draft legislation over the weekend that includes their wish list of immigration reforms to ICE and Border Patrol in exchange for funding DHS. And party leadership is not budging from those demands. They include targeted operations, no masks for agents, an end to racial profiling practices, among other things. Republicans and the White House have said that there is room for negotiations, but they've called some of the Democratic Party's demands, quote, ridiculous and non-starters.
Okay.
Joining me now.
Out of curiosity, the Democratic demands being ridiculous and non-starters. Targeted enforcement with judicial warrants is literally the Fourth Amendment. That shouldn't be a negotiating thing. That should be the standard. And the fact that it's not should be addressed in a completely different manner. No masks and require agents to display ID. Again, should be standard, because how else are you going to know that you're dealing with ICE agents and not people pretending to be ICE agents? Which would go again to the 4th through 6th Amendments. No operations near schools, churches, or hospitals or other areas, right? Is that ridiculous? Because that kind of seems like that should be pretty standard as well. Stop racial profiling practices. Is that ridiculous and a non-starter? Because, again, that violates the 14th and the 4th Amendment. Due process and then, racism. Mandatory body cameras. Ridiculous and non-starters. I mean, which of these 5 is actually ridiculous and a non-starter? And I would love to hear them point to whichever one is on here, so we can just be like, yeah, no, you're fucking fascist. You should be arrested, removed from office, and charged with sedition, with treason, with any state crime that would fit. Unbelievable.
Now is NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Melanie Zanona and NBC News senior Homeland Security correspondent Julia Ainsley. Mel, let's start with you. Lawmakers are making their way back to the Hill this afternoon after a long weekend. What are you hearing about a deal coming together before Friday? Is it even possible?
Well, a lot of pieces would have to fall into place in order for a deal to come together by Friday. But, Ryan, there have been some signs of movement because over the weekend, Senate Democrats did formally give their legislative proposal to Senate Republicans, reiterating some of those demands that you laid out there. And notably, our colleague Julie Sirkin reports that a White House official says that they're not ruling anything out and that while some of those demands are more challenging, other demands are actually...
Again... The first 4 are literally the 4th Amendment. At a bare minimum, the 4th Amendment covers all of them. The mandatory body cameras is safety, to be fair. I don't think that necessarily not having body cameras. I mean, it's not like they had body cameras in 1776, right? But the first 4 points are literally due process. You must have a judicial warrant. You have to identify yourself, and you can't just go and target random places looking for people, and you also can't just racially profile. Like, those are all due process. So, we're willing to work with that. The first 4 should be compulsory regardless. Like, that shouldn't be up for discussion. But okay.
Worth discussing. But at this point, those negotiations are only taking place at the staff level. It would probably take the principals, including President Trump, getting involved to actually clinch a deal. And meanwhile, GOP leader John Thune saying today that Republicans have their own list of demands, are intending to offer a
I can't imagine what those
there's
are.
Still a lot.
Here's a negotiation tactic. You walk into the room with some accessories and your turn. Very, very functional prop. A very functional prop. So, yeah. This is... I just don't get it, right? Like, these demands are the Fourth Amendment, due process. And then the Republicans are like, but hear me out. What if we just threw away the Constitution?
Long ways to go before they actually reach a deal.
A long ways to go, Mel, and a tale as old as time on Capitol Hill.
Okay. Moving on.
Welcome back. In a CBS News exclusive, a 14-year-old girl describes how she was zip-tied by law enforcement during an October raid on a horse racing track in rural Idaho. The raid was targeting an alleged illegal gambling ring, but resulted in more than 300 American citizens and 100 undocumented immigrants in custody, only 5 of whom were arrested on nonviolent charges. Today, the ACLU filed suit alleging the raid was a cover for an immigration operation and agents used excessive force against children. CBS News chief correspondent Matt Gutman spoke with the sheriff who led the raid.
The youngest that was zip-tied was 16 years old, and he had a mustache. There were kids in there. They weren't zipped. Those little ones were not zip-tied.
This is a picture of Suhey. We met her this morning. She's 14 years old.
Okay.
She's I would say, a child, a girl who was zip-tied, and these are the bruises from those zip ties.
Okay. And
have you seen that or heard?
No, I had not. I had not seen that. But I will tell you this. I've been in this business a long time. I've gone against gang members who are a lot younger than that.
She was with her 6-year-old brother and 8-year-old sister.
You're But you're taking that out of context. We
what
do not
kind
know
of context
her.
do you need? There's
We
a
do not
young
know
girl
her.
with 2 small children with her.
We
How
don't.
dangerous could she possibly be?
We don't know.
This is Democracy Now!
My mic is off. Fair enough. I guess to reiterate, I'm just having a rough time dealing with the fact that we are terrorizing children in real time, in 4K, and then the people in charge of our law enforcement are saying, well, we don't know if they were a threat. If active shooters, if white male active shooters can be brought down alive after they massacred students and teachers, congregants in church and whatever else, while still armed, but you have to zip tie a fucking 4-year-old and then face them plant down on the ground next to their fucking mother to try and lure other people out, or zip tie the child and put them behind the car to lure out the parents that are still in the house, or you have to zip tie the 14-year-old and her 2 small children because you're not sure if they're a threat because you encountered gang members who might have been younger. You're a racist piece of shit who should be nowhere near a gun, let alone a badge. And yes, you should be charged, arrested, and sentenced for your disgusting abuse of power. And me personally, I think the sentencing should be determined by the victims. It will be a minimum of life. And I'm not talking 25 to life. I mean until dead. Like, you're dead. Like, not that your heart flatlined and then they brought you back dead. No. Until you are a rotting corpse in the ground. Dead. You will never, ever see the light of day again. You will never taste freedom again. That is the bare minimum sentencing. From there, it's levels of execution. And I think the victim should be either able to determine what kind of execution or be the ones carrying it out. Because I'm just saying, if an ICE agent murdered a member of my family or terrorized a member of my family, the death penalty would be the least of their concerns. The absolute fucking least. And because I'm also running for Congress with ambitions to be president, I will have the authority to determine what those punishments will be and to actually write the legislation to carry it out and determine how those trials are carried out and performed. And you know what? Since we've already seen lawlessness, maybe we can bend the rules on what's considered cruel and unusual. Because as far as I'm concerned, cruel and unusual is imprisoning children in concentration camps in the first place. So death by hanging? On the table. 100% on the table. Firing squad? I'm pretty sure Papa will take up that 9mm or that M16 or M4 carbine and do the deed themselves. And you know what? I think they should have the fucking opportunity to do so. So, I am clearly a little biased and a little agitated when it comes to these ICE stories.
DemocracyNow.org. I'm Nermeen Sheikh with Amy Goodman. Democrats have reportedly begun tentative negotiations with the White House just days before funding for the Department of Homeland Security is set to expire on Saturday, threatening with another partial government shutdown. Democrat lawmakers are calling for reforms on federal immigration enforcement as part of a deal to negotiate more funding for DHS. Among their demands are requiring federal immigration agents have judicial warrants when carrying out raids, an end to racial profiling, and new
which is literally we've already gone into detail.
Guidelines for use of force. Though many progressives have argued this falls short, demanding agencies like ICE be dismantled or abolished. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer and House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries said in a statement late Monday, Republicans shared an outline of counter-proposals that, quote, included neither details nor legislative text. The initial GOP response is both incomplete and insufficient in terms of addressing the concerns Americans have about ICE's lawless conduct. The negotiations came in the wake of the fatal shootings of Renee Good and Alex Pretty, killed just weeks apart in January by federal immigration agents in Minneapolis. Last week, President Trump signed the consolidated funding bill hours after it passed the House, ending a partial government shutdown. The legislation included only a 2-week extension of funding for DHS.
This all comes as the heads of ICE, Todd Lyons, Customs and Border Protection, Rodney Scott, and U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, Joseph Edlow, are set to testify before the House Homeland Security Committee today.
So wait, why isn't Kristi Noem forced to testify? Isn't she the head of DHS? Like, so what? Now we're just passing the buck down and down and down? It's coming from on high. Kristi Noem, Stephen Miller. Why the fuck are they not being depositioned? Hello?
For more, we go to Washington, D.C., where we're joined by Congressmember Joaquin Castro, Democratic representative from Texas, whose district includes San Antonio. Congressmember Castro recently visited ICE South Texas jail in Dilley, where he met with 5-year-old Liam Ramos and his dad, Adrian. He helped free Liam and his father from Dilley, escorting them back home to Minneapolis. Congressmember Castro, welcome back to Democracy Now! If you can talk about your experiences in Dilley, the number of children, it's shocking, and hearing families yelling "Libertad, Libertad," liberty from the jail.
Real talk, I would be storming that. I would not be able to walk into a facility where children are screaming "liberty, liberty, liberty," and not lose my fucking mind. There is not a universe in which I, Samuel Ronan, go to a detention center that has children, a concentration camp with children in it, and I don't just immediately cause an absolute ruckus that'll probably get myself killed, even as a congressman, because that is it would take, I don't know what it would take to keep me, I would have to be physically restrained by an angry mob that is just as angry as I am, but wanting me to stay alive past their rage, because there should be things in this world that are taboo. There really should be things that are off limits in this world. Anything that harms children, mentally, emotionally, physically, or Epstein, that should be universally taboo. Not, oh, let's try and do statutory as mandatory, Kid Rock. None of that. No. Just anything that harms children should be taboo. And we are imprisoning children, treating them like fucking terrorists, and forcing them into jail cells. Yeah, sure, fine, with their parent. Under conditions that we're about to find out from Castro here. It's not like, oh, can't we just draw the line at racism and call it that? No, I'm not saying that. But I am saying, how can we as a country be so fucked up, so apathetic, that locking up children in cages, arresting them and forcing them on the ground as bait doesn't create universal outrage? That to me, I do not understand how we have fallen that fucking far. So let's get even more turned up.
And how that relates to the upcoming vote. I mean, the Department of Homeland Security will, run out of, not run out of funds, because they have an enormous amount of funds, but you have to vote on whether or not to continue their budget.
Well, I was in Dilley in late January and then back again to help release Liam Ramos and his dad. And the best way I would describe the Dilley facility is that it's a kind of trailer prison. There are 1,100 people there. None of them have committed any crime because you're not sent to Dilley if you've committed a crime. And they're in 12-person rooms, multiple families, up to 12 people in a single room. There's cameras everywhere. Their movements are controlled. It's like prison where when you come in, you leave your belongings, they're inventoried. When you walk out, as when I walked out with Liam, they give you all your stuff back. And what I saw with Liam was what I saw with a lot of the kids. They've been traumatized by the experience. He wasn't eating very well. He was sleeping a lot. He was despondent, missing home, missing his mom. That's the case not only for him, but for a lot of the kids that are there. And I think the most shocking thing to me going through there was when I asked one of the folks who worked there what the youngest person there was. And he told me eventually that it was a 2-month-old baby who was in basically that trailer prison. And so, you know, we asked people also, we were trying to get a sense for, well, how do these people end up here? We asked them how many were seeking asylum, how many had court cases, how many had used the CBP-1 app, which was supposed to be an orderly and efficient way to apply for asylum and then come into the United States rather than rushing the border. And there were a big chunk of people who had used that app, for example. And so you have a lot of people who did things the right way and now are shell-shocked to find themselves in a trailer prison in rural Texas and on the verge of being deported, even though they followed the government's advice for how they should apply for asylum and come into the United States.
This is a prop. This is not a live firearm. So, they admit that they are overfilling the facility, for one. For two, not a single person in these concentration camps have been charged with a single fucking crime. Every single person in these camps is an innocent human being. And a majority of them were following the rules that this regime put into place. Now, don't get me wrong, we called that out months and months ago. This time last year when that shit started rolling out, we're like, nope, you're gonna get fucked. You are not gonna get deported, at least not to where you think you're gonna go. You're gonna either be detained or you're gonna be sent to El Salvador. And what we are seeing is you're gonna be detained. Also probably El Salvador. Illegal detention, no due process. Every single person in those camps are being held against their will, without due process, for profit. So that means the governor and the entire state legislature and the leadership of Dilley, Texas, as well as the business owner of the camp and the management staff and everyone else, plus the regime and their leadership and everyone there, are all guilty, equally guilty, of violating the Fourth Amendment times however many people are there. Which I'm guessing is thousands of detainees. So that's thousands of counts of violating the Fourth Amendment, human rights violations, for each and every single member that I just listed out. There is a reason why the Second Amendment non-prop version exists. Oh, you didn't add Bad Bunny. Oh, wait, yes, you did. It's at the very, very bottom. I see.
On January 30th, 2026, the Department of Justice released hundreds of gigabytes of material related to Jeffrey Epstein. Buried within that data dump were some 2,000 videos that had never been released. And while they're technically public, they are stored in a way that makes them very hard to find or browse. The public then has two choices: download hundreds of gigabytes of data, or click through hundreds of web pages one by one. I did both. The vast majority of the videos, and by far the most revealing ones, live in dataset 10. These are videos seized from Epstein's devices, footage he recorded himself, received from others, or downloaded from the internet. Some of these videos are difficult to watch. Epstein's world was a dark place, and many of the files contain unsettling or disturbing footage. We're going to show you some of these videos now, and viewer discretion is advised.
Yeah, trigger warning, which actually includes me, because I'm already hopped up. So this is your chance to look away.
Most of these videos tell us little we didn't already know. But taken together, they paint the most vivid picture yet of Epstein's dark world. His lavish lifestyle and worldview, his mannerisms and quirks, his sense of humor, and sense of impunity. The videos are heavily redacted to protect the privacy of Epstein's victims.
The victims, yes, should be protected, except the conspirators are also being oftentimes redacted, which is the exact opposite of the mandate.
In some clips, these redactions mask explicit content.
So the FBI has child pornography from Epstein as evidence for crimes committed and isn't prosecuting a single fucking thing? And we're supposed to believe that that is anything other than a cover-up.
We've published all 14 hours of this footage, excluding only obvious duplicates, audio-only files, and fully redacted videos that contain neither sound nor image. We're doing this because the
Fully redacted. So they already fully redacted pages that was just black ink, and they did the same thing for the videos too?
public deserves to see what's in these files. Not hidden in a government database, but clear and easy to access. None of these videos reveal a new Epstein. They reveal the same one, over and over again, operating in plain sight, insulated by wealth, surrounded by enablers, and confident that the videos, like everything else, belong to him. You can watch the full videos of Dataset 10 at thefp.com.
This morning, a new...
Seriously? That was disturbing. That was... oh my god. We're not gonna watch those videos. We're just not gonna do that. But the fact that there are no charges being filed, no perp walks, nothing being done at all. But we can have depositions over the lowest hanging fruit at ICE and DHS. But apparently Epstein, honestly, there's nobody that's low hanging fruit from the Epstein files. Like, fine. We're not gonna see Trump get perp walked while he's in the fucking White House. I get it. But there isn't anybody. No just low hanging middleman that can just be thrown under the fucking bus. Was it purely billionaires and politicians? Like, this was such an exclusive group that it was purely the most powerful elite individuals in the country. Not a single middle manager. Nothing like that. Not a lawyer, not a prosecutor, not a judge. Retired. Really?
Document coming to light claims in the mid-2000s, President Trump called police about Jeffrey Epstein. Among the 3 million Epstein files released by the Department of Justice last month is a 4-page FBI report on an interview the Bureau conducted in 2019 with the man believed to be former Palm Beach Police Chief Michael Ryder. Ryder and his detectives began investigating Epstein for human trafficking in 2004. According to the document, Trump called Ryder around that time and said, "Thank goodness you're stopping him. Everyone has known he's been doing this." this. Ryder also says Trump said he threw Epstein out of his club, and he was around Epstein once when teenagers were present, and Trump got the hell out of there. The former police chief says Trump told him to focus on Epstein's associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, saying she is evil.
Did you have any suspicions that he was molesting young women,
No, I had
underage
no
women?
idea. I had no idea.
Trump has long denied having any knowledge of Epstein's crimes, but Ryder says Trump was one of the very first people to call when people found out that they were investigating Epstein. Maxwell appeared from prison for a congressional deposition yesterday. The convicted child sex trafficker was grilled about Epstein's crimes.
Can you please provide us with all the names of other additional co-conspirators to the crimes perpetuated by you and Jeffrey Epstein?
I invoke my Fifth Amendment right to silence.
She invoked the Fifth Amendment after every question. Maxwell's lawyer says she is prepared to speak fully and honestly if granted clemency by President Trump. Meanwhile, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick faces bipartisan calls to resign over new revelations about his relationship with Epstein long after Epstein pleaded guilty to sex crimes.
So why just resign? Why not charges and imprisonment?
Commerce Department saying Mr. and Mrs. Lutnick met Jeffrey Epstein in 2005 and had very limited interactions with him over the next 14 years. Overseas, King Charles is breaking his silence about his brother, former Prince Andrew, since the new revelations and the latest Epstein files release. King Charles now saying he is ready to support police as they look into a claim that Andrew shared confidential material with Epstein back when Andrew was a trade envoy. The palace saying the king has made clear in words and through unprecedented actions his profound concern at allegations which continue to come to light in respect to Mr. Mountbatten Windsor's conduct. Back in Washington, members of Congress were able to view unredacted versions of the Epstein files yesterday.
There were tons of completely unnecessary redactions in addition to the failure to redact the names of victims.
Republican Thomas Massie and Democrat Ronan say the DOJ redacted several names of men they say should be revealed without redactions. Massie is threatening to read the names on the House floor, but says he'll give the Justice Department time to respond.
I think we need to give the DOJ a chance to go back through and correct their mistakes.
Why? Fucking why? Why are we pussyfooting around? Read the fucking names. Hey, I got to see the unredacted files, and I saw Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Bill motherfucking Gates. I saw them all, and it needs to be revealed, and it needs to be discussed, and charges need to be filed. How hard is it to do the right thing? Evidently, even the Republican who is trying to cross party lines, or at least, I don't know, go against MAGA, is struggling to do the right thing. Don't threaten. Fucking do it. That is your literal job as a House of Representatives. Representative. To represent the people's wants and needs, right? Their interests. And it is in our interest to know those fucking names. This prop is a little unwieldy at times. Good grief. Okay. No, it's to stack the stock portfolio. Yeah, it is that. They're like, hey, you got a very good... Oh my God. It probably is. Honestly, it probably fucking is. We got 30 minutes left, but we actually made it through most of this list. So, oh wait, did he
After
reveal
the
a little
Justice
bit?
Department made millions of unredacted records, unredacted about convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, available for certain members of Congress to view today. Here's what Representatives Thomas Massie and Ronan said they saw just moments ago. Take a listen.
What I saw that bothered me were the names of at least 6 men that have been redacted that are likely incriminated by their inclusion in these files.
Our bigger concern is that there's still a lot that's redacted, even in what we're seeing.
So there's at least 6 men. Are they the tech bros? Is it Trump? Well, I mean, I guess those aren't redacted per se. Is it J.D. Vance? Peter Thiel? Like, who are they? We definitely deserve to know. Make sure that you have at least 10 to 15 minutes for the Bad Bunny video. You know what? Let's just skip to the Bad Bunny video and we'll try dragging it out. Hold on. Oh, wait.
In a new interview with NBC...
Oh, it's our boy. It's our data analyst. Let's do that. And then we'll do Bad Bunny.
News President Trump took ownership of the current state of the economy, saying, "I'm very proud of it," he said. This comes as there is new polling showing that many voters are not as happy as the president with the way that things are going with said economy. CNN's chief data analyst, Harry Enton, is running the numbers on this, but also speaks to the changing nature of President Trump's base right now. Talk me through this.
Yeah, okay. So, you know, if you know anything about Donald Trump, you know that he built his 2 presidential victories on winning voters without a college degree, while Donald Trump's base with non-college voters is absolutely collapsing. What are we talking about here? Well, why don't we just take a look? Voters without a college degree on Donald Trump. Look at this. Back in 2024, he won those voters over Kamala Harris by 14 points. You come over to this side of the screen. What's his net approval rating with him? He is underwater by 9 points. That's a 23-point switcheroo with his base of non-college voters. He is absolutely collapsing with the group of voters that helped put him into the White House, Kate.
Okay, so how are these non-college voters feeling about 2026?
Okay, so you see this drop of 23 points, right? From plus 14 Trump to now he's underwater by 9 points. How is that impacting their views on how they're going to vote for Congress? Well, you see a similar story going on here, right? Take a look. In the 2024 election, Republicans won those voters, those non-college voters, by 13 points. Now they're just ahead by just 1, 2, 3, 4 points. When you can count it on one hand, you know that you're in trouble if you're Donald John Trump and the Republican Party, in this case, the Republican Party, when it comes to the voters in Congress. And of course, a 4-point lead among non-college voters is not anywhere close to being good enough because Democrats are dominating among voters with a college degree, up by 20 points. At this point, the Democratic base with college voters is rising, and the Republican base with non-college voters is collapsing.
So, that's interesting and somewhat good for my congressional race, is that although they aren't likely to vote Republican in the sense MAGA, they might vote Republican if it's not MAGA. So there is some, I mean, these polls definitely show that being MAGA and having the Trump endorsement is not going to do you the favors that it did 2 years ago. Had I ran as a pro-MAGA candidate in 2024, there's a very good chance I could have won. But there's no way I would have ever been able to compromise my values, beliefs, and morals to do that, which is, I guess, one of the reasons why I make such a terrible campaigning politician. Exactly. Mike Carey was endorsed by Trump. So what we might see is that although Republicans are jumping ship from MAGA, that might encourage them to vote in the primary, in their Republican primaries against MAGA. So that, I mean, that might be me wishful thinking, but it also has some, it does have some merit in this polling as well. They might just be jumping ship to Democrats, which is also fine. That is a thing that does tend to happen. Like, as we've been discussing throughout this stream, that during the midterms, it switches, right? That is the reality. But that also means that incumbents in their districts with their party affiliation are also vulnerable to primary. I doubt that they are jumping ship to the Dems. Right, and I would agree with that too. I don't think 9% of former Trump voters are just going to jump ship to the Democrats. They're just going to find they're going to take their disillusionment to the next best thing.
One of the big promises, circling back to the economy, one of the big promises from President Trump was bringing back manufacturing jobs. And that speaks to somewhat of this split that you're kind of highlighting here. What are the hard numbers on this?
Yeah, okay. One of the reasons why Donald Trump has been able to bring non-college voters into the Republican ranks is because he said, hey, I'm going to bring back those jobs, those manufacturing jobs that were lost to free trade, right? Bring in those tariffs, restrict those jobs from moving overseas. But there's just a bit of a problem going on here. How about those manufacturing jobs? In December of 2025, compared to the beginning of the Donald Trump presidency, the manufacturing jobs have gone adios amigos. See you later. They've been going away, down 63,000 versus January of 2025, with an even larger collapse since Liberation Day, right? So what we're dealing with is a Donald Trump message that is not actually meeting the reality, and that is why non-college voters have been going.
Which is crazy, right? We're going to bring back manufacturing, and instead of bringing back manufacturing, we have lost manufacturing jobs in record numbers. So, again, I have a very pro-labor, pro-work, pro, bringing the people into the economy message. If people just bother to look me up, it's going to be very obvious that I am fulfilling the promises that they wanted to have fulfilled. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm pro-Trump. It doesn't mean that I'm for the mandate. It just means that if that's what you're looking for, improved jobs and improved wages and improved affordability, I'm your guy. And that is exactly what people want.
Away from the President of the United States and away from Republicans as well.
Important message in all of these numbers. Thanks so much, Herr.
Thank you.
President Trump now declaring the country is in the Trump economy.
Oh, nice. So Trump is now owning this economy. Like, from this point forward, it's all me. And we're on the verge of collapse. That's fucking hilarious.
I'm very proud of it. 5.6%. You know, we have a GDP of 5.6 despite a shutdown. We had a 42-day shutdown. They call it the Democrat shutdown. And because of that, I lost 1.5 points. I would have been at a 7 GDP, which hasn't been seen, I don't know, ever, maybe ever.
Yeah.
And I think 20.
And the fact that the interviewer is just like, yeah, sure, whatever, instead of challenging the president.
6 is even going to be better.
CNN's Kevin Liptak live at the White House for us this morning. Kevin, what else is the president saying here?
Yeah, and it is striking just to hear him now take ownership of the economy after spending most of last year laying the blame directly on Joe Biden. You know, he even said at one point that he would take credit for the good parts, but that the bad parts were Biden's fault. Now, we should note that some of the numbers that the president used there don't comport with what the government have put out. The president saying that GDP was at 5.6%. You know, the last reading that we got, which was for the third quarter of last year, showed that annualized growth was at 4.4%. We haven't gotten a figure for the last quarter of last year because of that government shutdown. Estimates have been much lower, although one estimate from the Atlanta Fed put the rate at 5.4%. So that could be perhaps what the president is pointing to there. I think it all, points to this disconnect perhaps between what the president says is the state of the economy and what most Americans feel is the state of the economy. You know, a CNN survey last month found that 55% of Americans said that President Trump's policies had worsened U.S. economic conditions. 32% said that they had improved them. 13% said that there were no effect. Now, how the president reconciles those viewpoints with his view of how the economy is doing will certainly be his challenge in this very important election year. White House officials have said that he will be hitting the road with this economic message. They at one point said that he would be out once a week, although so far he's only done 2 of these trips, and both of those speeches sort of veered off in multiple different directions. The takeaway wasn't necessarily the economy, the president talking about his grievances, about immigration, about all manner of other topics. Perhaps his biggest opportunity to make this argument will be at the State of the Union address that's coming up in about 2 weeks' time on...
Oh my God, we have the State of the Union to cover. That's the thing, okay? So, one, he's delusional and he's lying about the economic growth. The Bureau of Labor Statistics was literally fired and compromised to the point where we can't even trust the government data. So the fact that it's being reported that it's 4.4% or 5 point whatever percent, who actually believes that? Like, given the real numbers that we have lost jobs and things have gotten more expensive, that's not growth. If people are in debt and struggling to find work and the cost of living is going up, yes, fine. Private corporations are making more money because the prices are going up. But people are spending less and spending less of their sundry money because they don't have sundry money. They're going into debt because they can't afford the rising prices that are being used to pad numbers or the pockets of the wealthy and powerful. So again, price gouging, profiteering, and literally using economic terrorism to subjugate an entire population is why we have any growth at all. Because the real numbers, the real outlook of our economy is struggle. And over half the country seems to agree. So, Bad Bunny time. Before Anna reaches through the screen and...
This in no way meant patriotism and love of America as a country. Actually, let's play a game. I'm gonna tell you all the real symbolic cultural moments as a Boricua, including what this one was about, and I want you to tell me in the comments how many you got right. Now let's begin where it all started. We see the Jíbaro, the traditional Puerto Rican countryman with the pava, the straw hat, saying,
Qué rico es el latino. Hoy se ve!
and interestingly enough, he starts by setting the precedent that all of this is going to be in Spanish because he says Benito Antonio Martínez Ocasio, his full government name, presents el espectáculo de medio tiempo del Supertazón, the spectacle of the halftime of the Super Bowl, all in Spanish. And if you look at the backdrop, you will see the sugarcane plantations, which in Puerto Rico were the backbone of the island's colonial economy, heavily dependent on enslaved African labor, particularly during the 19th century sugar boom. In the very next frames, we see Bad Bunny turned around before he reveals himself, and he's wearing a 64 on his football jersey. 64 was the number the Trump administration gave out as the number of people who died after Hurricane Maria, but the actual death toll by that time was actually 1,052. Then we see Bad Bunny walk around the sugarcane plantation showing us very historical and cultural markers of Puerto Rican culture, like for example, the coconut stand, which historically coconuts provided subsistence for Puerto Rican workers and were considered a vital tree of life for supplying water, food, and oil. The abundance of coconut palms allowed them to become a staple for local businesses. Roadside coconut vendors became a staple of Puerto Rican culture, particularly in coastal areas offering fresh, chilled coconuts with the tops cut off. Then he walks by the
Now, I'm not a fan of coconut in candy or in, well, most things that I've ever tried coconut with, I've never really liked. Now, that could be because I'm white and I had them made under white dishes. And white people food traditionally fails to measure up to the authentica of whatever traditional country has them, right? Coconuts, I'm sorry, but nobody from France knows what a fucking coconut is because there aren't coconut trees in France, right? Or Spain, or Germany, or Austria, or definitely not England, or Norway, right? You know, so for there to be European dishes that integrate coconut, you would it's kind of expected that that's probably not going to end up well. Pineapple to a degree sometimes works out. I'm just not a fan of pineapple myself. Just, you know, I have had pineapple on pizza, Hawaiian style, and I can understand why people would do it. Still not my thing. I still don't think it belongs. But, you know. But I would be very interested to have authentic cuisine that integrates coconut in it and see if there's any difference for me in my palate if it was made traditionally versus the way white people make it. Secondly, just to like drink the coconut juice, for lack of a better word, milk, water, from the coconut itself. Like I would be very keen to actually try that one day. If they're so pissed at not knowing Spanish at the event, get headphones that translate the language and it's as it's spoken. Just like with the Nuremberg trials, just like with press conferences overseas. Which is true. That is and the technology is becoming much more accessible and affordable. My mom made coconut fish so good that my Italian cousins who hated fish loved it. Coconut water, I love that ish, straight from the tree. Water does in fact grow on trees. So, there's that. Okay.
Table of father, uncles, and grandfathers playing dominoes, which in Puerto Rico, dominoes, or el dominó, is more than just a game. It is a cherished cultural staple, social ritual, and symbol of community that bridges generations together through strategy and storytelling. He then walks by badass Puerto Rican women doing construction, which represents badass Puerto Rican women who shouldn't be underestimated because they also do manual labor, like construction, very subversive to the patriarchy.
I'm just going to state that if Puerto Rican women are hardworking laborers in construction and Puerto Rico is a part of America, are these the OSHA certified uniforms that they utilize on the work site? And if so, I think I need to join OSHA and find them.
Then he walks by a piragua cart. Now, piraguas are more than just a shaved ice dessert in Puerto Rico. They're actually a cultural icon, a symbol of nostalgia and a staple of island life. Brought to places like New York City during the Great Migration in the 1940s, piraguas symbolized the adaptability and endurance of Puerto Rican culture in new environments. But then we see him walk by a taco cart, but not just any taco cart. This is an actual taco cart in California called the Villas Taco Cart. The business owner, Victor, who started the business out of his grandmother's home kitchen 8 years ago, now has 3 locations around California. And this shows Bad Bunny has a commitment to supporting local small businesses over big corporations. After he...
Bad Bunny! Support small businesses that are pro-culture. Look, granted, not Latina, but I have Latina characters, just not in these ones that I picked out, okay? Support small business and creators. Bad Bunny, if you can help me get Esoterra, I can finally create the Aztec character version variants, and we can finance the revolution together for love. I have Latino characters. I really do. I genuinely do have character designs. I have the research ready to go. The naming conventions, all of it. I don't have the money to necessarily. You know what? Fuck it. Bad Bunny. Call me. I will spend the money to send you a short run of the Taino, Azteca, Inca, and Mayan cultural referenced Esoteric character cards. Please!
He visits the taco cart, we do see him ducking under boxers as he continues singing. Often considered one of the best boxing nations pound for pound, Puerto Rico has produced over a dozen Hall of Fame inductees, and in 2004, it became the first territory to have champions in all 17 traditional weight divisions. Wow. Boxing is deeply ingrained in society, and it serves as a pathway for and reflection of the island's warrior spirit.
See, that's nuts. So we shit on Puerto Rico. We literally tried to let them die, which is going to be discussed later in this video, so that we could turn them into a luxury resort, on top of the fact that we have basically treated them like a slave plantation location since we lied to them about their liberation. But Puerto Rico, which is a part of America, has literally some of the most talented boxers in history coming from that island. And we're so racist in this country that we don't even acknowledge that Puerto Rico is America, and that is actually American, that America can actually take partial credit for that. Like, that's our people. Puerto Ricans are our people. We should be wanting to integrate, not castrate. So anyway, Call me BB, I'm Sam's manager. It's true. And baseball players, right? Like, a phenomenal amount of athletes come from Puerto Rico, and it's not even close.
Then we see the famous casita that we were introduced to at the residency in Puerto Rico. It serves as a cultural anchor representing home, community, and the Marquesina party culture. The Marquesina is an open-air garage where people meet, greet, and talk for hours all day. And yes, Black Afro-Puerto Rican representation was brought to the forefront at the casita because Black Puerto Ricans very much exist, take up space, and are family, no matter how much white supremacy doesn't like the fucking idea. And the same goes for queer and gay representation. We exist, live, laugh, and our gay joy is also resistance and revolutionary. But then to the melody of
Okay, so is he gay? Because he's saying our with that. Not that I care, but I'm just curious if that's the reason why he chose that phrase. But true, representing the fact that Puerto Rico is also diverse and inclusive.
Monaco, he tells us that he made it to Super Bowl 60 because he believed in himself. And then he reminds you, believe in yourself, because you will be able to achieve everything you want in life if you do so. From there, we go to the actual wedding that was real and officiated at the Super Bowl, which is iconic in and within itself, but is really about family and community and love. And then we reveal that Lady Gaga's in the motherfucking building, and not only in the building, but killed it. But this was also a culturally significant moment. Gaga is wearing a light blue dress, which is the correct kind of blue that goes onto the original Puerto Rican flag that people in Puerto Rico were killed and imprisoned for flying after the US passed La Ley de Mordaza, or the gag law of 1948. That light blue represents sovereignty and resistance. The current dark blue flag is supposed to resemble the blue on the American flag in support of furthering the aims of colonization, supporting statehood. Gaga also accentuated.
Okay, well, that is something I'm gonna update on my statehood position on the website because the flag, I mean, 1948, and as far as I know, that hasn't been repealed because it's still dark blue, right? So being able to restore the light blue to the flag should be the barest minimum that we can do. Now, here's the thing. It's also going to be stated in the rest of this video at some point that Puerto Ricans don't want to be part of America. And you know what? If push comes to shove, I will absolutely respect that. I am a proponent for statehood only because it gives them a direct, undeniable voice in our government and a way to not be ignored by the government or to be taken advantage of by the government. Because then they would have their own governor, their own state assembly, their own National Guard, 2 senators, and at least 1 congressman. So to me, I feel like becoming a state offers far more protections than if they became their own sovereign country, because what would stop America from invading Puerto Rico outright and conquering it like we just fucking did to Venezuela and like we're threatening to do to Cuba, Colombia, and Iran? My thing, the only reason why I am still an advocate, despite seeing this and understanding it, no less, is because it's security. And I get that. Security without liberation doesn't deserve either, right? I hear you. But if I become president, I get 2 terms. I have to think long term. What is the best way to at least ensure the safety of Puerto Rico? Their own ability to determine their future within their own confines, but without becoming vulnerable to U.S. foreign policy. That's it. That's my only argument, and I'm not even saying that I would force the issue. That is the reason why I believe Puerto Rico should be a state. But I 100% agree that Puerto Ricans have the right to their own determination, and if Puerto Ricans want to be a sovereign country, we have to find a way that they are safe from future U.S. foreign policy or something like Trump happening again. Okay, so it's a generational divide, which is fair. I mean, young people want their independence, period, dot, end of story. Like, that is the definition of youth. So that tracks. So, moving along, and if we're going over a little bit, that's fine.
Censored her gown with a custom Flor de Maga corsage, official flower of Puerto Rico. After that, Bad Bunny falls back off of the building as a trust fall to signify the bond of trust built on community and familial support.
Well, and he paid all those dancers, and if they dropped him, they would they would be out of jobs and sued, and the whole world would be upset that Bad Bunny died on national television. But hey.
That is so integral in Puerto Rican culture as opposed to the American culture, which is toxically about rugged individualism. He's falling onto his people because he knows they will catch him, because we're all we have, and we are each other's safety net.
And that is 100% true. The fact that America is so vehemently independent and ruggedly individual is the reason why fascism is kicking the shit out of us right now. If we collectively, all 330 million of us, were more communal based like Puerto Rico, this shit would have never happened. First of all, we would have far more political parties, for one. And for two, we wouldn't have been dealing with a police state for nearly as long as we have had either. So, we need a societal shift towards community.
And yes, that Puerto Rican community is built in and around the bodegas, the mini marts, the mom and pop restaurants, and the Puerto Rican barbershops and salons. At one point, he even gets a shot of coconut rum from a woman named Toñita, who he also has in his music. This is the actual Toñita, who is the owner of Brooklyn's Caribbean Social Club, one of the last surviving Puerto Rican social clubs in the city, and she is an iconic figure in New York, and there is a celebration in her honor every June 22nd. After that, Bad Bunny goes and gives his little boy self-representation, his grown-up self album of the year Grammy, and tells himself to always believe in himself, showing little Puerto Rican boys and Latino boys all around the diaspora that they should believe in themselves because they will go to extreme heights. Then he has a jibaro playing the cuatro, introducing Ricky Martin singing Lo que le pasó a Hawaii from his DTMF album. This instrument, the cuatro, originated in 16th century with the jibaros, and it is primarily used in música jíbara, evoking traditional country life. It is a symbol of Puerto Rican soul, resilience, and identity, often used in folk music and increasingly in modern genres. And then you tie the history of that instrument to Ricky Martin singing Lo que pasó a Hawaii, which is Bad Bunny's song, warning that he doesn't want the US to do to Puerto Rico what they did to Hawaii. The song...
Right. This is why I'm saying, I think to save themselves from US interventionism, become a state. But I also get, we literally colonized and conquered Hawaii, overthrew their government, and then forced them basically at gunpoint to become a state. I am well aware of the history, and it's terrible. And what's happening in Hawaii now is even worse, because indigenous Hawaiians are getting their rights taken from them, their indigenous identity taken from them and crushed, because corporations want to make lots of money for travel and the luxury industry, right? The same thing can and is probably in the process of happening in Puerto Rico. And that's appalling. It's abhorrent. So even with the idea that Puerto Rico could become a state, Hawaii is still a living example of, well, statehood doesn't actually guarantee the prosperity of the indigenous, right? So it still comes down to this. Hawaii is at least not suffering from US interventionism and foreign policy, but is still subject to US capitalism, which goes back to the main issue, the main problem, which is that corporations control way too much power and influence in the government and in the nation of the United States of America. Never mind society and culture across the globe, which is why federalization, public ownership of all industries. The U.S. fucked Hawaii and destroyed their culture. That's why young people are so pro-independence in Puerto Rico. And again, I am saying I agree. I 100% agree. And I also understand that even despite the argument that statehood is a safety measure, it still isn't a guarantee until or unless we address the root cause of all these problems, which is capitalism. and its influence in our society and government.
Serves as a political anthem and warning to Puerto Rico, comparing the two islands' shared experiences of colonization, displacement, rampant gentrification, and over-tourism. And he's singing in the scene of Bad Bunny's album cover, which already represents the story of how Puerto Ricans get in community with each other, sitting outside in the famous plastic white chairs, except on the album cover, they're empty. Just like this chair is, because of gentrification and that displacement. And it's actually poetic that Ricky Martin is then interrupted his singing by exploding light posts behind him, with jibaros trying to fix them. Given the fact that Puerto Rico has a continually failing electric grid because the corrupt pro-statehood politicians do nothing about it. And it's interesting that you see the jibaros, the country folk,
Okay, see, that's not helping my argument any. There are pro-state politicians in Puerto Rico who are also trying to gentrify Puerto Rico by deliberately allowing its infrastructure to fail. So I'm losing the argument. I'm definitely losing the plot here. I get that. I get that I am losing the plot because all of the evidence points to the contrary. I do get that.
Common men and women are the ones trying to fix the problems themselves, with no help or support from a governmental system. But Bad Bunny doesn't just stay on the ground singing to the camera his song El Apagón, which is really about the consistent blackouts that plague Puerto Rico. Because him on the ground having the Puerto Rican flag and singing directly to the camera demonstrates his world-facing advocacy and him using his platform to bring attention to the issue. But there's a point where he puts the flag down and climbs to the top of the light post himself to demonstrate his commitment to our people. He's saying, I will be in the trenches fixing this and in any one of our problems because we do this together. Community is central to this theme. But then we get to where we started. Bad Bunny looks at the football and he said, God bless America.
God bless America.
And people who know English specifically heard that and said, yes, he's being nationalistic and patriotic because he is American. Yes, stick it to the man. You're Puerto Rican. You're a citizen. But then they didn't hear the part right after that. Because right after he said, God bless America, he said a Spanish word, sea.
God bless America. Sea Chile, Argentina.
Sea is a Spanish word that means be it. So when he said, God bless America, sea, and then lists all the countries located in the continents of the Americas, plural, what he's saying is that when we talk about America, we have to decenter the United States. He begins by listing countries geographically under the equator to the top, from the continent of South America, stops at Mexico, shifts to the Caribbean, then all the way to the top of North America with US and then Canada, framing the Americas in a way that has never been done before in a very subversive and revolutionary way, and then ends by centering Puerto Rico. So what he's saying is that together...
I mean, the censoring Puerto Rico part I didn't catch on, and the fact that he went equator down and then equator up, I didn't catch that either. But that is true, because usually when you talk about the Americas, it starts with America, the United States, then Canada, then I think Greenland is considered part of the North American continent, and then it goes to all of the Latin American countries, the non-white parts of America. So no, that is true. I 100% agree with that.
Together we are America, including all of the countries historically marginalized and neglected. It was a fuck you to the United States. This in no way...
I don't know if it was a... I don't know that it was a fuck you to the United States. It was definitely a fuck you to Trump, though. Anywho, I like that there was not a single wasted second in this performance, the Bad Bunny Super Bowl halftime show. That every part of the performance was a lesson to those watching and a reference to a history that is all but forgotten in our country. And that he not only told that story, told that history, but did so in an unapologetic and unashamed way. This is who we are. Fucking deal with it. We're proud of it, and you should be too. So, on that note, Bad Bunny running mate 2028, VP, Bad Bunny. That has been our stream Tuesday, Taco Tuesday. We covered quite a bit, and I did lose my cool for quite a while there. I apologize. But that is the difference between Samuel Ronan, the candidate, And Samuel Ronan, the person who is absolutely batshit enraged that this shit is happening in our country. On the same token, I hope you enjoyed the correspondence, the way I reacted to things. If you like the channel, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I keep forgetting to do that throughout because, well, I'm not a good creator, I guess. Suffice to say, we are streaming tomorrow, same time, 7 to 10. We are going to be talking about foreign news, world politics, so on and so forth. And then Thursday, mark it in your calendars, same time, same place. We're going to do a recap of anything that we may have missed or that may have transpired. So on that note, take care, have a great night, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Samuel Ronan, your future president, out.